Asmad Gurubhyo Namaha, Asmad Paramagurubhyo Namaha, Asmad Sarvagurubhyo Namaha. So today we're going to speak a little bit about, we're going to talk a little bit about the differences, the slight philosophical differences and doctrinal and practice differences between Wadagalai and Tengalai, the northern and southern schools of the Sri Vaisnava Sampradaya. And there might be some other questions that come up. But first of all, I'm going to share a screen. We're going to go through, there are 18 basic points, and we'll go through those points and maybe elaborate a little bit about them. And if you have any questions, just unmute and ask them. Okay, so let's start. So it's normally said that there are 18 differences here. But in fact, there's a lot more, there's many more differences, little subtle differences. And the first thing I want to stress about this is that there are two main schools in Sri Vaisnava Sampradaya, although there's different sections in the communities. But every Sri Vaishnava follows Vishishta Dvaita Vedanta of Ramanuja. So the basic Vedantic doctrine of Ramanuja is the same. It's the same amongst all acharyas and all followers of Sri Vaishnava Sampradaya. So these are only small differences. And there's a lot of people who don't even know the differences and who don't even care about the differences. So in the ultimate, you can make it as much of a problem for you as you think it's a problem. If you want to emphasize the difference, you can. If you don't want to emphasize the difference, it's not that important. Okay, so anyway, classical 18 points of doctrinal dispute were codified in the 18th century. So these are all later developments. At the time of the two main acharyas in Sri Vaishnava Sampradaya, who are considered to be the founders of the two sects, the two separate sects, if you can call them that. Vedanta Deshika of the Wadagalais and Pilalakacharya or Manavala Muni of the Tengalais. At the time of those acharyas, there was no distinction between the two sects. Okay, so we don't know. They seem to get along very well, and so it's only in later times that these small differences became problematic. So what we're reading from is the Sri Vaishnava Handbook by Rama Ramanujachari, and he takes a third opinion. I'm recording this. Yeah. He takes a third opinion, and which he calls Metgalai. The word Wada in Tamil means north. The word Tenga or Tenka means south, and Kalai means culture. So it's the southern culture and the northern culture, or the northern culture and the southern culture. So he makes up a word called Metgalai. Met means meaning west. So he says Westerners. His idea is that Westerners can have a different culture, and that they can. And you'll see that he picks on one aspect or another aspect. He chooses between the two sides according to the way he feels. He wants to follow that. I'm not personally endorsing that. But I'm just saying that there are different ways that you can look at this. There are more, everybody doesn't follow exactly strictly the 18 differences of their particular school. And so we'll just go through it. So he says, I personally, being a Westerner affiliated with Tengalai Sampradaya, because he took an initiation from a Tengalai Acharya, the Jir Swami of the the mutt in Sri Perumbudur, Ramanuja's birthplace. But free of all sectarian scruples, follow the middle path taught by our teacher Ramanuja, and therefore I accept some Wadagalai and some Tengalai arguments. By the way, when we talk about north and south, north here doesn't mean North India. It means the culture of Kanchipuram, which is north of Sri Rangam. So when we talk about Wadagalais or the northern school means northern Tamil Nadu, which is actually a very southern state of India. And southern Tamil Nadu, or Sri Rangam, Sri Rangam is really central Tamil Nadu. But anyway, it means the northern school is the Kanchi school, and the southern school is the Sri Rangam school. The difference being, just a little bit of background here, that in Kanchipuram is actually a holy city with a lot of temples, and it has two sections to the city. There's the Smarta section and there's the Vaisnava section. So actually, if you go to Kanchipuram, they refer to these two suburbs of Kanchi as Shiva Kanchi, where the Smartas live, and Vishnu Kanchi, where the Vaishnavas live. So there are many Vaishnava temples. There are many other temples too, also Smarta temples. So, and some, they're not necessarily all in one part either. So sometimes you find some Vishnu temples in Shiva Kanchi and some Vaishnava temples in, Vaishnava, and vice versa. Anyway, so the thing is, one of the reasons why we have the Wadagalai and Tengalai differences is because the acharyas in Kanchipuram, the Sri Vaishnava acharyas in Kanchipuram, are always in conflict with the Advaitins, with the Smartas, Mayavadis, because they're living right next to them, living close to them. Whereas the acharyas in Sri Rangam are living in a big, big community only of Sri Vaishnavas, only of Vaishnavas. So the acharyas in Kanchipuram used to give more emphasis on preaching to people who were not Vaishnavas, preaching against Advaita, preaching Vishishta Advaita against Advaita. So there was a lot of that. They also tended to want to show that they were also following Shmiti Shastras and other Dharma Shastras, just like the Smartas do, so that they wouldn't be criticized for not following those things. Because sometimes Vaishnavas, they don't follow Manu Shmiti or Apastamba or these Vedic Shmitis as closely as the Smartas do. In fact, all Vaishnavas, all Hindus, in fact, are Smartas. What do we mean by Smarta? Smarta is simply a person who follows Shmiti. So Gaudiya Vaishnavas might be, and also Sri Vaishnavas might be familiar with this saying, Shruti Shmiti Puranadi Pancharatra Vidim Vina, that we should follow Shruti, Shmiti, Purana, and Pancharatra. We should follow these different shastras. So in fact, we should follow Shruti, we should follow Shmiti, we should follow Purana and Pancharatra. And there's a gradation in pramanas. There's a gradation that we normally consider Shruti to be the greatest proof. So if there's something in Shruti that says we should do something, it should not be contradicted by the lower pramanas, by the other pramanas. However, if there's nothing really said, or to just clarify what's in Shruti, right? If we get a statement in Purana, Pancharatra, or Shmiti, that can help us clarify any position that is given in Shruti. So the thing is that sometimes the Vaishnavas will see something in Pancharatra, or they'll do something in Pancharatra which seems to be against Shmiti. So they'll take it over Shmiti. And so whereas even if you're a strict reading, for instance, of Manu Shmiti would have you not eat the remnants of any food offered to a god, to a devata. Whereas we know in Vaishnavism, it's one of the big principles is to take prasadam, the food which is offered to Vishnu. So this might be technically against Shmiti, but it's a major principle of Vaishnavism. So in that way, we can say Vaishnavas are Smartas, they follow Shmiti, except when they don't follow Shmiti, except when it is against some Pancharatric or some other Vaishnava aspect. This could be very interesting when we start, if we ever get to start to talk about Varnashrama, because Varnashrama is a system of Shmiti. It's a system that has many, many Shmiti rules, right? There are Varnashrama rules which are in Shmiti, whereas there might be some Vaishnava rules which overcome those rules. And we'll see some of those in some of these differences here. So anyway, getting back to the point, the Kanchi Vadagalaya Acharyas, they're in effect trying to follow the Shmiti rules more closely, like the Smartas or the Advaitins in Kanchipuram, so that they're able to get respect from them as actually following the scriptures, and therefore they can argue against them philosophically. Whereas the people in Sri Rangam, the Acharyas in Sri Rangam, are all Vaishnavas. So within the Vaishnava community, they don't, because they don't have to argue about what they mean about their application of Shmiti rules and things like that. So therefore, it's a lot more relaxed. So the Sri Rangam Acharyas were preaching to the choir, as we say in English. They were preaching to people who were already converted to Vaishnavas. So they didn't have to justify perhaps not following some small rules of Shmiti Shastra. Okay, so anyway, getting back to that. So let's start with the first one here, the nature of God's all-pervasion. Okay, so he's going to give here, each section he's going to give. And by the way, there is a bigger book about this. If you want to know more about this, there's a book called The Sri Vaishnava Theological Dispute by Patricia Y. Mummy. And it's a whole book. It's about 300 pages long. I have it. If you can't get it, it's still in print. If you can buy it, or otherwise, if you can't get it, I can scan it. If people are really interested, it gives more about the life of Vedanta Deshika Pila Lokacharya and Manavala Mahamuni, the two or three heads of the different schools, and also gives an in-depth understanding of the differences between the different Kalais, the different northern culture and southern culture of Sri Vaishnavism. Okay, so getting back to this. So, okay, would you say Purana is higher than Pancharatri? Is a question in the chat. So, Pillai Lokacharya has written a book called Srivachana Bhushana. And Dr. Alwar has mentioned that to us. And he has mentioned that that is a very important book. In that book, there's a discussion of the level of pramanas. It's taking all different scriptures and things and showing which is greater than which, like that. So amongst Puranas, there's a hierarchy where Vishnu Purana is considered to be the highest. And then even amongst other shastras like Pancharatra, Itihasa is considered to be higher than Purana. Amongst Itihasas, we have Ramayana and Mahabharata. Ramayana is considered to be the higher Pramana than Mahabharata. So he gives all reasons why he gives a gradation of Pramanas. And we can look at that some other time, but it's beyond the scope of this particular class. So if you want to look at Srivachana Bhushana's discussion of the level of Pramanas, different levels of Pramanas, according to Sri Vaishnavas, and specifically according to Tengalai Sri Vaishnavas, because Pillai Lokacharya was, of course, the proto-Tengalai Acharya. We can do that some other time. All right, so getting back to this, the nature of God's all-pervasion. So what does this mean? So God is called Vishnu. He's also called Narayana. He's also called Vasudeva. So these are three Vyapaka names, or the word Vyapaka means all pervasive. So the main difference between God and everybody else, all other entities, either chit or achit. Chit means either conscious entities or unconscious entities like dull matter. The main difference between chit and achit and God, Ishvara, These are the three Vedantic, the three categories in Vedanta. Three categories in Vedanta is there's either God, you're either God, or you're a soul, or you're a lump of matter. You're a piece of the universe. So the universe, the matter is insentient. And we know this from Bhagavad Gita, right? Krishna says in the 7th chapter, Bhumira Ponaro Vayu Kamanavurevacha, these are all insentient. They're Bina Prakriti, Krishna says. They are my separated energy. And there's another energy also, Aparayamitastvanyam Prakritim Vidimeparam, Jiva Bhuta Mahabaho. Jiva Bhuta, the Jiva Bhuta is also an energy of the Lord, separated energy, and but it's sentient. So the main difference, the biggest difference that we have between us and God is that God's all pervasive. All pervasion comes in different ways. So you can pervade something from the inside, or you can pervade something from the outside, or you can pervade something from both the inside and the outside. So there are three main names for God in Sri Vaishnavism. They are Vishnu, Vasudeva, and Narayana. So these are called Vyapaka names. Vyapaka means pervasive, all pervasive. So Vishnu means pervading from the inside. So if something is pervaded inside, if it's completely inside, like water inside a sponge, that is Vishnu. Vishnu is known as, so Vishnu is the Lord that pervades from inside. Vasudeva is the Lord that pervades from outside. So if there's if you've got something and it's completely surrounded by something else, everything around us, the universe and everything is also God. So if we're pervaded from the outside by God, that is called Vasudeva. And then the name Narayana incorporates both Vasudeva, both being pervaded from the inside and being pervaded from the outside. That is why the most important mantra for Sri Vaishnavas is Om Namo Narayanaya, and not Om Namo Vishnave or Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo these are three Vyapaka mantras, or mantras that talk about the pervasiveness of God. And why are they important mantras? Is because pervasiveness is the greatest quality of God and the most distinct quality that sets him apart from everything else. In Sanskrit, there's a word called lakshana. Lakshana means that quality which sets apart the thing which we're talking about from everything else. So, for instance, we can say, in English, we can say that that there's a cow and there's a horse, right? There's a cow and there's a horse. How do we make a distinction between a cow, a horse, and a zebra, for example, right? Somebody will say, "Oh, they describe them. Give us a lakshana." Now, if you give a lakshana, you're supposed to give some sort of quality that no other animal has, that you immediately say that you know what it is. So for a cow and a horse or a zebra, somebody's going to say a quality of cow and horse, they have 4 legs. Well, that's okay. There's a lot of animals that have 4 legs. So saying that if you don't know what a zebra is, or a horse or a cow or whatever, if you just say, describe it to me. If you just say, well, it's an animal with 4 legs. Well, an elephant has 4 legs too. So just saying that animal has 4 legs doesn't really describe it by its essential nature. Its essential nature, the essential nature, for instance, of a zebra, or let's say an elephant. The essential nature of an elephant is not that it has 4 legs, but has a trunk. No other animal has a trunk. Okay? All right. So therefore, we don't have to continually saying all these different qualities that may be common between a horse, a cow, a zebra, and an elephant. All we have to say is, there's an elephant with a trunk. And immediately everybody knows, oh, it's an elephant. There's an animal with a trunk. It's an elephant. So that's why the word Lakshana is there. So the Lakshana of God, the thing, and there's some other things too, which are Lakshanas of God. But the main thing, the most important thing, is that he's all pervasive. So this all pervasion is very important. And when we describe God as being all pervading from only inside, right? That's Vishnu. When he's all pervading from outside, that's Vasudeva. And when he's both pervading inside and outside, that's Narayana. So, of all the names of God, the names of God which describe his all pervasiveness are the most important, and there are three of them. And of those three, the most important one is the one that describes him the fullest, that he pervades from inside and also from outside, and that is Narayana. Whereas Vishnu and Vasudeva are less important names of God. They're also names about God's all-pervasiveness, but they describe him either pervading from the inside or from the outside, whereas we know he pervades from both. So therefore, the best name of God is Narayana. And that's why Om Namo Narayanaaya is the most important Vyapaka mantra, and the most important Vyapaka name of God is Narayana. But sometimes we do use those other, in Pancharatra, we do use those other mantras, Om Vishnave Namah and Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. They are known respectively as the 6-syllable mantra, Om Namo Vishnave, the 8-syllable mantra, Om Namo Narayanaya, and the 12-syllable mantra, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Okay, so back to all pervasion. What do the Vadagalais say? They say everything in the universe is comprised of anus or atoms, which are the smallest particles of matter. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean the scientific understanding of the word atom, because the scientists have some idea that there are things which are smaller than atoms, neutrons and electrons, whatever it is. So, hang on. Okay, so we were talking about everything in the universe is comprised of atoms, which are the smallest particles of matter. Therefore, what we mean by God being omnipresent or all-pervasive is that God pervades everything in the entire universe except the jiva. Right? The jiva is atomic in that it is the smallest particle of consciousness and subtle, and as such cannot be permeated by God. If it were so, the jiva would no longer be subtle and would pertain to the category of a gross object. I'm not exactly sure about that, but anyway, you understand the Vadagalai's point here is basically that if we look in the Bhagavad Gita, it says about the soul in the 2nd chapter, it says it cannot be cut, it cannot be broken. So similarly, like the idea that they used to have about atoms, is it's the smallest indivisible part. So if it's indivisible, they think it cannot be pervaded by God from the inside, only from the outside. So this theory of the Vadagalais is called co-pervasion, that God pervades everything, but from the outside only. And he pervades matter from the inside, but he cannot pervade the soul from the inside, because the soul is indivisible, as stated in certain scriptural references. Okay, so let's see what the Tengalai say. The Tengalai say, not so. God's ability to permeate and pervade surpasses the human ability to conceptualize or understand. So we may be thinking, like it says we may see in the Shastra that it says that the soul cannot be divided, or it cannot be split, or it's the smallest of the small. But so therefore, how can it be permeated by something inside, right? But God's ability to permeate anything, even the soul, may be greater than our idea. Our mind can understand that something can be indivisible, but still can be pervaded from inside. God is the greatest of the great, and therefore pervades the entire universe. The entire universe, according to us, should be also including the souls. He's also the subtlest of the subtle and can therefore interpenetrate even the jiva. The power of pervasion is like the genera which co-inheres in every individual of a particular species. For example, cowness is present in every member of that species, right? So he's saying that the power of pervasion is like the inherent spiritual nature of the soul. So Brahman, the supreme Brahman, penetrates the soul in the sense that the soul is like that, is a member of that class, being also conscious like God. God is conscious, we're also conscious. So because of that, that's another point that the Tengalais make. Okay, so now Rama Ramanujachari, he has his Western idea, he has his idea, and he says on this we accept the Tengalai position, right? So is there any discussion on that? Does everybody understand those points? That the Wadagalais say that the soul is indivisible and therefore can't be, isn't that God is next to the soul, but he cannot permeate the soul. But the Tengalais say that God can even permeate the soul. He can even permeate the soul from inside. Is there any discussion about that, or do you want to move on? Is it clear? Okay.
Yeah, it's clear. Yeah.
It's clear. Okay. So the second point is the nature of Lakshmi or Shri. And you're going to find in different sampradayas, they have different ideas about even in Shaivism, even in Gaudiya Vaishnavism, in the different Vaishnavisms, God is there, and God has a supreme consort, which is, and she's always given a position of prominence, right? So even in Madhva's Dvaita or in Gaudiya Vaishnavism, in Bharat, whatever it is, in any of the sects, God is there, and there's a consort of God, at least a main consort. He may have many consorts, and or wives, and they're given, she or they are given extreme prominence in all the systems. But exactly what is the nature of God's wife or God's consort, like that? So here we're going to call her Lakshmi or Shri. In Gaudiya terms, that would be Radha. In other terms, it might be Rukmini, Krishna, or it might be Sita, Ram. There might be different names, but it means the same thing, the same idea. So sometimes we hear other Vaishnavas, Gaudiyas talk about Shakti Tattva. You know, what is even in Shaivism, you have Shiva and Shakti. So what is the nature of Shakti, right? As opposed to Shiva. Shiva is there and Shakti is there. So there's the male and the female, right? Okay. So the Wadagalai idea is that Shri, or Lakshmi, has essential pervasion or swarup vyapti. Remember we were talking about vyapaka mantras, vyapaka names. We were talking about pervasion. We're still talking about pervasion here. So vyapti means pervasion. Swarupa means by her own self, right? Swarupa, her own self, her own form, by her own form. Somebody pervades something by their own form. Okay, I'll give you an example, as well as the same as Narayana. So the Wadagalais say that she has the ability to pervade in the same way as Narayana. So they would believe that, that, for instance, when we install a deity in a temple, of course we say that God is everywhere. God is within every atom. The Tengalais say he's also within the soul. He's also, the Wadagalais say he's also there next to the soul or surrounding the soul, right? So our idea is that God is everywhere. So he's all pervasive like that. And he's all pervasive in his full form, in his swarupa. Whereas, how is Lakshmi all pervasive? Nobody disagrees that Lakshmi is pervasive. Everybody says Lakshmi is also pervasive. Shri is also pervasive. How does she pervade? That is the question. Lord Narayana pervades in his Swarupam, in his very own personal form. He's there everywhere. How does she pervade? So what do they go on to say? They say they are co-eval or equal, co-equal, in that they both share the same essential nature, and therefore they form a dual entity with a cooperative entity, a cooperative identity, right? And this is known by many people as Divya Dampati. The Tengalais also use that word Divya Dampati. Divya Dampati simply means the divine couple. We'll hear that in Gaudiya Vaishnavism also. You'll hear it in other forms of Vaishnavism, even in Shaivism. The divine couple, Shiva Shakti. The divine couple, Rukmini Krishna. The divine couple, Sita Ram. The divine couple, Radha Krishna. Right? So Godhead in these systems is seen as a dual thing. It's not seen as just there's a God and then he has a wife. It's seen as God and his wife are the Godhead. Both of them together are the Godhead. They are one entity, but they appear to be in two forms. We see them in two forms. Maybe we anthropomorphize them and we therefore split them into different sexes, and we ascribe one of them as being more compassionate, Shakti as being more compassionate, and the other being more rigid or something. You know, this is the idea. Lakshmi is completely divine as per the teachings of Lakshmi Tantra, which is a Pancharatra Agama. There are also the Vadagalais and the personification of the mercy of Lord Narayana. Okay. There's also some statements that are quoted about this from the Vishnu Purana and also from Lakshmi Tantra by the Vadagalais. And they say, on the basis of those statements in Lakshmi Tantra and Vishnu Purana, we say that Lakshmi, just like Narayana, is everywhere. So what they're basically saying is, when you have a deity, for instance, there are 5 forms of God, everybody knows, right? According to Pancharatra system, there's 5 forms of God. Karnika, Vyuha, Vibhava, Antayama, and Acha. Karnika means the supreme Godhead in the original Godhead, right? Sometimes called Avatari, the source of all avatars or all descents. In Vaikuntha or in Goloka, whatever you name your highest original abode of God, his original form is there. That is called Karnika. In Karnika, now what does Karnika mean? It means the very middle of a flower. This is a flower. It has petals, and inside it has stamens, and in the middle, very middle, it has the center of the flower. So that's Karnika. Karna means Paravasudeva. In Pancharatra, he's called Paravasudeva. He's the original form. And Gaudiyas will say Krishna and Goloka. That Krishna. But normally when Sri Vaishnavas want to talk about, they say Paravasudeva. Paravasudeva if you want to say Vasudeva, he could be here or there or anywhere. Paravasudeva is there. He's in Vaikuntha. He's the original one. He never leaves. Like that. So to make that distinction. All right. So there's Karnika, Vyuha. He expands Vasudeva, Sankarshana, Pradyumna, Aniruddha. So Paravasudeva, then Sankarshana, Pradyumna, Aniruddha is in Pancharatra at least. These are the names of the Vyuhas, the different aspects of God, and each of those aspects of God shows 2 of the 6 aspects of Bhagavan as being more prominent than the others. All of them have all the 6 aspects of God, you know, all power, all fame, all knowledge, all wealth, all power, and all renunciation. Have Jnana, Bala, Kriya, Jnana, Bala, Aishwarya, Tejas, Shakti, right? They have all these things in full, but each one of the Vyuhas, of the 3 other Vyuhas, they show 2 more prominently. Okay, so this is Chadavyuha, this first set of expansions from Karnika. So Karnika Vyuha, Vibhava means the Leela avatars, different from Matsya, Kurma, Varaha, Narasimha, Rama, Dasarama, Dasarathi Rama, Parashurama, Balarama, like this. Different avatars. Okay, this is called Vibhava. Antaryamin is the super soul, the Paramatman within the heart, which is along with the Atman, explained in the Upanishads as the two birds sitting in the tree. Okay, with that analogy. And Antaryamin and Archa. Archa, the last one, is the deity in the temple. So you have a deity in the temple, the Archa avatar of the Lord. These are the five permanent forms of God. There are other forms of God too, like Vishvarupa, the universal form, but it's not a permanent form because it changes, because the universe changes. Although the universe itself ultimately is eternal, but it changes. It goes through creation, sustenance, and destruction, and a cycle. So the five permanent forms of God, according to Pancharatra, end with Archa. So the Archa. So the Archa avatar, when we install the Archa avatar, it's directly, we think of it as directly as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Narayana, Lord Krishna, whatever, his Swarupa, his original form. It's his form. It's his form. It's directly his form, like that. However, when we install a deity of an Acharya or a deity of Lakshmi, right, there's a slightly different method of installation. And what is the concept of how the Lord pervades that Archa avatar of his in the temple is, of course, by his Swarupa. How does she pervade? How do the devotees pervade? How do the acharyas pervade their deities? Because they have to pervade their deities also. So the Tengalai idea is that Shri has attributive pervasion, which is not Swarup Vyapti, but is what's called Guna Vyapti. What are some gunas that we know? Guna means qualities, to pervade by qualities. Well, what are the qualities of the soul? The qualities of the soul are what? Sat, Chit, Ananda, right? These are qualities that actually all Brahman has these qualities. So Chit and Ananda, right? These are qualities. So Chit means consciousness. It can mean knowledge also, right? And in fact, the living being or the jiva is often called just Chit Shakti. It's Chit Shakti, right? In fact, in Vedanta, we have these three categories: God, the souls, and the universe, and they're called Ishvara. God is called Ishvara, and the soul and the universe are called Chit and Achit. The soul's called Chit, and the universe is called Achit, which means conscious and unconscious. So there's conscious and unconscious. Okay, so conscious means there's knowledge. When there's consciousness, there's knowledge, right? You can't have consciousness without knowledge, right? Descartes. I think, therefore I am, right? So we say, I think, therefore I am. So when you think, as soon as you start thinking, as soon as something starts thinking, it gets knowledge of itself. That knowledge of itself, later on, if we want to read a book called Yadindra Dipika, or in some other, we'll learn some basic Sri Vaishnava philosophical terms. What is it called? There's a type of jnana which is self-evident. A type of jnana which is self-evident. Knowledge which is self-evident. If you ask anybody, do you have any knowledge? Of course, the very first knowledge you have is that you exist, right? How do you have that? You know, because you're consciousness of your own self, of your own mind and your own body and your own soul. You're conscious of that. So therefore, you know you exist because you're conscious. When you're unconscious, you don't have a real understanding. But we're going off into other subjects here because there's different states of consciousness. There's deep sleep, and there's turiya, there's sushupti, there's different states of consciousness. Anyway, apart from that, let's get back to it. The soul is basically conscious, and the consciousness is a type of jnana, a type of knowledge, a type of self-evident knowledge that we exist. So that self-evident knowledge, that's a quality. Okay, so here, what the Tengalais is saying is that she is pervasive by her knowledge, right? Remember, in moksha, in liberation, the idea of moksha or liberation in Sri Vaishnavism is that there is no longer any maya, right? There's no longer any illusion, right? And this is normally the idea of moksha. Even Sripad Shankaracharya says, Jnanat mokshaha, Jnanat mokshaha. Jnanat means, it's the ablative case singular of jnana. It means from jnana, or jnanat means from jnana, or it means because of jnana. Jnana, moksha. Because of jnana, because of realization, or because of knowledge, comes jnana. Once you have knowledge, you get moksha, right? The thing that's stopping you from getting moksha is that you don't have any knowledge. You're covered, you're in illusion. Once your illusion is gone, you're liberated, right? That's the idea of Shankara, like that. It's also the idea of Sri Vaishnavas too, that in liberation, knowledge is all pervasive. We have all knowledge in liberation. So if we have all knowledge of liberation, we also can understand if somebody if we're in Vaikuntha and somebody in the material world makes a little deity of us and offers prasadam, offers some bhoga to that deity, we understand that that's going on. We know that that's going on, even though that might be going on far away. We understand that it's going on, and therefore we can reciprocate in some way, right? Whereas God's deity is specifically there. He is there personally, accepting the bhoga, accepting the offering of incense and flowers or whatever it is, service. But the Tengalais say the jiva is not there. It's not there. Its form isn't there, but its knowledge can be there. It knows what's going on. So it's pervading by its knowledge. That is called gunavyapti. And he says here, corporal pervasion, vigraha vyapti. In other words, she shares the same qualities and attributes as Narayana and shares the same manifest iconic form and pervades the universe. She does not have essential pervasion or swarup vyapti. I think he's making it a little bit more complex than it needs to be here. And maybe he's trying to be a little bit more subtle about it. This means that Shri does not have essential divinity by nature, as she is a jiva, but has the divine function of mediatrix as a gift from God. Motherhood differs from fatherhood, and again, differs from childhood. The jiva is the child who has attributive pervasion only. This means that jiva shares the qualities of bliss and consciousness, existence, purity, and eternality of Sriman Narayana. Shri is the mother who has attributive pervasion as well as corporal pervasion, which is physical pervasion of the universe. The father is Narayana, who has attributive, corporal, and essential pervasion, and is pervaded by him from within and without. It is this pervasive character that differentiates these three principles, between these three principles. The function of Shri is to mediate Purushakara between the jivas and God. And she is of the same nature as the other jivas, but is immaculate and without karma. She is not subjected to ignorance or avidya, and being such, she's in a perfect position to act as a mediatrix. Okay, so this last sentence I just want to say something about. Even in the system of Madhva, and also in all other Vaishnava systems, the idea is that Lakshmi or Shri or Radha or Rukmini or Sita stands between God and the souls and mediates between them. So similarly, if the Tengalais, and this is very clear if we read the Sharanagati Gaja of Sri Ramanuja. So Ramanuja has written 3 poems in prose. It's funny that I say poems in prose, okay, because Sanskrit is naturally a poetic language, so most Sanskrit is actually written in verse. When you write something in prose, it's called a gadya. So we have several Gadyas. There are 3 Gadyas of Ramanuja. They are Sharanagati Gadya, Sri Ranga Gadya, and Vaikuntha Gadya. And they deal with Vaikuntha, Sri Rangam, and the first one, of course, is Sharanagati, which deals with surrender or property. Saranagati, which is equal to property or the surrender to God. And that's the main method of or path towards liberation of Sri Vaishnavism. So Sharanagati Gadya is in the form of a conversation between Sriman Narayana, Goddess Lakshmi, and Ramanuja. And Goddess Lakshmi is she's acting as a mediator between Ramanuja, who is the soul, and Sriman Narayana. And she's recommending to Sriman Narayana that you forgive the souls all their bad karmas and bad deeds, and that you accept them out of mercy. You should accept them, and you should give them liberation, like that. So anyway, we can read Sharanagati Gadya some other time. But here's the point. Okay, so why is this important to mention here? It's important to mention here because who has ever been in a mediation, right? There's 2 things. There's mediation and arbitration. I don't want to go into the difference between mediation and arbitration. But anyway, you can all understand mediation. Mediation means there's a medium. There's something in between, something in the middle. There's one party on one side who has their idea, and there's one party on the other side who has their idea, and there's somebody in the middle, and that mediator helps the 2 parties to come to an agreement, right? A mediator has to be objective. A mediator cannot be longing to one side or the other side. I'm giving you the definition usually of what a real mediator is. Now in Sanskrit, that word is purushakara. Purushakara. We won't go into the meaning exactly of what purushakara means here, but the point is, she stands in the middle between the baddhas, the errant souls, the illusion jivas, right, and God, the sinful jivas and God. She stands in between and she recommends. But she's in between. She's not on his side. She's advocating for us, but she's also advocating for him. But she's in the middle. She has to be in the middle, because if she were just another God, if there were 2 gods, right, or if there was a divine couple, then we'd just be approaching the divine couple, and we'd be saying, "Okay, divine couple, please accept me," right? And then if she accepted it, it will be enough. It will be enough for her to accept us. But it's not enough for her to accept us. She's the mediator. She's trying to get Lord Narayana to accept us, right? She's the mediator. She's in the middle. If she is God and she's with him, how is she in the middle? She's not in the middle. She might be sitting there saying to him, "Why don't you accept them?" But then she's in the middle. She's in the middle. She's not him. She's not God. If she were God, then she would not be in the middle. She couldn't be a mediator. So this is also another point by the Tengalais. They say, how can she be God? Because she is in the middle. She's a Purushakar. She's the mediator. And the mediator can't be on one side or the other side. The mediator has to work out, between the 2 sides, has to work out the mediation, has to come to the compromise. There has to be a compromise. What's the compromise? The compromise is, yes, we're going to surrender. We're going to surrender to God, and he's going to forget about all our sins. That's a compromise. Because we could surrender to God, and he could say, "Okay, you surrender to me. That's fine. You still have to spend all your eternity, or so many millions of births and work out your karma. So that's fine. You surrender to me, but you still have to work all your karma out," like that. But he doesn't say that. He says, "Surrender unto me, and I'll relieve you of all the sins." Right? Sarvadharma pritya, mam ekam sharanam prapadyam, aham tva sarva papebhyo. He says, don't worry about the sins. Masuchaha, don't worry. Right? Don't worry about all those sins, because that was what Arjuna was worried about. Arjuna was worried. Krishna taught him all these different yogas. taught him all these different yogas, how to surrender to him, how to surrender to God. But Arjuna was worried. Okay, Krishna, you told me karma yoga, jnana yoga, bhakti yoga, prapatti. You told me all these different things to do like that, but I think I still can't do it because I've got this pile of sins from beginningless karma sitting on top of me. How can I properly fulfill these different duties of karma yoga, jnana yoga, bhakti yoga, and do these different things? How can I follow these paths when I'm weighed down by all this stuff? And Krishna said, forget about that stuff. So there's a compromise going on here, and Sridevi or Lakshmi, right? She helps to work out the compromise because she's in the middle. She's the mediator. She's not taking his side of it, and she's not taking your side of it totally. She's working out a compromise, and therefore she stands in the middle. So some people might say, well, okay, so then she's a completely different thing. She's not God. She's not a jiva. Some people take that idea. But then how does that work in Vedanta? Because in Vedanta, we have three categories. There's three categories. You're either God, a piece of matter, or a soul. Okay, so she's not a piece of matter. She's not insentient, right? So she's sentient. She is sentient. She's a mediator. She is a sentient. She's knowledgeable. So she's either God or she's a jiva. So the Vadagalais take the position. She's God. She's just another God, right? And the Tengalais take the position is she can't be another God because it can't be two gods. The definition of God is there's one God, right? There's one God. There can't be, nobody can equal or surpass Sriman Narayana. So some people say, well, nobody can surpass Sriman Narayana. Nobody can surpass Krishna, but, Sri Devi can be equal to him or Radha can be equal to him. No, the definition of God is that nobody can be greater than him, but nobody can also be equal to him also. So Radha can't be equal to Krishna. Sri can't be equal to Narayana. That if they're not equal and they're not greater, they have to be lesser. They have to be lesser in some way. Madhva also, in his book, Tattva Samkhya, Madhva says that Lakshmi is a jiva. Or he doesn't exactly say she's a jiva, but he says she's conscious, and unlike other people, she's never been touched by ignorance, which is what he says here. Not subjected to ignorance, or not subjected to. He actually used the word dukkha asprishya. She's never touched by sorrow, right? You can only be sorrowful if you're in ignorance, right? Because otherwise your nature of Ananda, right? Remember, we're Satchit Ananda. Your nature of Ananda will shine forth unless it's covered. If the chit is covered, then the Ananda is also covered. So to the extent that you're ignorant, to that extent you're also sorrowful or you're also sad. Okay, so she's never covered like that. So that's what Madhva says. She's dukkha asprishya. She's never covered by ignorance. All right, so let's see what Ramanujacharya says. Whether he thinks which side is got a better argument or not. Right. Also, remember that the Vadagalais also when they say that she is she is like God, right? They also say she's able to therefore give liberation herself independently of God, of Sriman Narayana. And she's also able to create universes, which are these are other things which are unique to God. God is unique that he can create universes, the souls cannot. God is unique that he can give liberation, the souls cannot. So they say that she can give liberation, she can also create universes. But they say, then the Tengalai say, but we never see Lakshmi creating universes. We never say Lakshmi giving liberation directly. And they say that's because she defers to her husband and she can do it, but she never actually does it. So she lets him do it, right? So this is the Vadagalai argument. The Tengalai say, if she doesn't do it, then the reason is because she's stands in between, and she's not God. She doesn't have those abilities to do that. And besides, and we don't believe that some entity can be equal to God, right? Another reason that I would say, even for Gaudiya Vaishnavism, in Gaudiya Vaishnavism, there's this concept also of the divine couple, Radha Krishna. And sometimes people talk about the Godhead as being Radha Krishna. And at other times they talk about the Godhead being Krishna and Radha being the servant. Or Radha being the expansion of one part of Krishna, as it's said here, that she's an expansion of his Saulabhya or Daya or his mercy. In Gaudiya Vaishnavism, they say she's Hladini Shakti, or she's an personification of his bliss, right? Okay, right? But then she's not a personification of everything. If she's only a personification of Hladini, then she's not a personification of Samvit and Sandini. She's not in the Upanishads it's stated, Parasya Shakti Vividaya Shruyate. Parasya Shakti Vividaya Shruyate means that there is multifarious energies of God, but basically they are three energies, internal, external, marginal, which we talked about. You've got Ishvara, which is God, Chit and Achit and Ishvara. So Chit is the marginal, and Achit is the external, is the matter, right? But there are many varieties of forms of energies of God, right? And so Lakshmi they see as being one of them. So my point about that was that if she's only one of them, she's not all of them, right? Whereas the Vadagalai idea is, no, she is another God. So you've got one God, Narayana, another God, Lakshmi. And therefore, they have this idea that she can create universes, she can give liberation by herself, but she never does because of her subservient nature to Lord Narayana, in the sense that she's like a consort or a wife, so she serves him like that. We heard the definition given in Mumukshapati in the other last class with Dr. Alwar. He gave the definition of a jiva. The definition of a jiva, of a jivatman, right, is that it's dependent. Lakshmi is also dependent on the Lord. Everything's dependent on the Lord. Madhva also says this. In his book, Tattva Sankirana, Madhva says that first of all, we have a first category. If we want to talk about everything in categories, the first thing is there's dependence and independence. There's only one person who's independent, totally independent, and that is Sriman Narayana, or Krishna, or God. God is totally independent. Everything else and everybody else is dependent on God. So Lakshmi is also dependent on Narayana. Radha is also dependent on Krishna, right? Sita is also dependent on Rama. Rukmini on Krishna, like this. So because she's dependent, she falls into the category of jiva. So the Tengalites categorize her as a jiva. Now, the Madhvas also categorize her as not God. They don't exactly say she's a jiva, but they say she's a living entity like us, but she's far, far greater than us. The Tengalites also would agree. Lakshmi is far greater than us. It's not like we're saying she's like, she's like our sister. She's like somebody, she's just like an ordinary human being, or ordinary lady. She's not like that. She's far, far greater than us. But in terms of where God is, she's far less than God. So we're really far less than God. She's far greater than us, but he's much greater than her. Okay, so that's basically the idea. Okay, so let's see what he says. He says that his idea is that he accepts the Vadagalai position as being more in accordance with scripture, the Pancharatra Lakshmi Tantra. I've already described how the quotes from Lakshmi Tantra and the quotes from Vishnu Purana, which say that she's all pervasive, can be understood as guna vyapti, or pervasive by qualities and not pervasive by swarupa. Okay, so that's the Tengalai argument. That yeah, she's all pervasive by her jnana, by her qualities. She's all pervasive, not in the same way as God is all pervasive. So then it's very hard to find script. And I would point out that in Pancharatra, when we install a deity of Narayana, we do so in one way. And when we install deities of Lakshmi and deities of Acharyas, we do it in a different way. There's a slightly different way. So we don't consider that the deities of Devatas, deities of Acharyas and saints, Alwars, and of Lakshmi are pervaded by the swarupa of those personalities. They're not pervaded by the swarupa of those personalities. They're pervaded by guna vyapti of those personalities. Those personalities are certainly in moksha, and they have their jnana is all pervasive. So they can pervade a deity that's here in the material world, but only by guna vyapti, not by swarup vyapti. Okay, so it's very hard to find scriptural support for the Tengalai position of Lakshmi. Okay, he says this. I would counter that to say that there really isn't scriptural support for the Vadagalai point, because the Vadagalai point makes two gods. And if you know, as we said before, Shruti, or the Veda, is or Upanishads, is much a greater pramana than Pancharatra or Smriti, right? So if there's statements in Vishnu Purana and statements in Lakshmi Tantra, which is a Pancharatra, which contradict the statements in the Veda, then we have to accept the Veda. What does the Veda say? The Veda, or Shruti, which is the highest pramana, and even Rama Ramanujacharya will accept this. The Veda, which says that in the beginning there was one, and the one became many. So it doesn't say in the beginning there was two, Lakshmi and Narayan. It says in the beginning there was one, and the one became many. So if the one became many, that means that the origin is Narayana. And that means that others are not Narayana. And if they are not Narayana, how can they be equal to Narayana? Right? The only thing that we agree comes from Narayana or Paravasudeva, which is equal to him, is an avatar of him. So are you saying that Lakshmi is an avatar of Narayana? Is that what you're saying? So then why we don't put tulsi leaves on the feet of Lakshmi? Why we don't put tulsi leaves on the feet of Radha? Why we don't treat Radha as a Vishnu? We have female forms of Vishnu. Mohini is a female form of Vishnu. So we could say that Lord Narayana and Mohini Avatara are one and the same. But we never say that Mohini Avatara is the same as Lakshmi. We never say that Srimad Narayana is the same as Lakshmi. Why? Why do we make a distinction, therefore, between Lakshmi and Mohini Avatar? So I would ask this question, right? There's a Puranic account of the birth of Lakshmi from the ocean of milk, but we should understand that to be also like the birth of Rama, the birth of Krishna, that when the Lord appears in this world, even then when his associates, with his consorts and associates, when they appear in this world, that's a Puranic story, and that's not. That doesn't mean that they're not there in Vaikuntha as eternal Nityasuris or Nitya Siddhas or whatever it is, like that. Being a descendant of the Brihu clan, which would indicate her to be merely a jiva who is accepted as a consort of Narayana. Okay, so Tengalais actually don't make that argument. He's saying here that maybe Tengalais would make that argument. No, I've never heard a Tengalai make that argument, right? But there's also abundant textual evidence that she, being the supreme goddess, the mother of the universe, the primordial being, the Tengalai position leads to spiritual chauvinism. Okay, denying the inherently female aspect of the divine. The Vadagalai position retains the concept of the divine being a combination of both male and female principles, which is more in accordance with common sense. Okay, so first of all, I'm going to say common sense is neither common nor sensible. So I don't agree. Our system of pramanas is not that we accept common sense when the Shastra says something different, right? And this idea of spiritual chauvinism doesn't have any meaning to me either, because even Sriman Narayana himself shows aspects of femininity, shows aspects of in his own self, right? He has extreme mercy, just like a mother, you know. And as I said, he appears as Mohini avatar also. So it's not that Sriman Narayana cannot appear as a female or exhibit the great qualities. He exhibits all good qualities. He is called Nirguna because he doesn't have any bad qualities. So he exhibits all good qualities. So there are many good qualities that are there in female living entities, right? More than in male living entities in general. And he exhibits all those. Okay, so we don't need to create another female god for him to show those qualities. He shows them. Like that. Okay. So I don't agree with Rama Ramanujacharya. I agree with the Tengalai system. I agree that there cannot be two gods. Also, if we look at Sri Vaishnava mantras, for example, we have Om Namo Narayanaya. Let's just take Omkara. In Omkara, we have 3 letters, A-U-M. A means Vishnu. U means Lakshmi. M means the Jiva. U, or Lakshmi, comes in between M and A. Om, A-U-M. She comes in between. Not only literally she comes in between, right? But figuratively and doctrinally, she comes in between the living entity and God. She is the mediator, again, the mediatrix in between. Mediatrix just simply means a female mediator. She comes in between, right? The question is whether she's God or whether she is a living entity, because these are the 2 categories in Vedanta. Okay, but even in the syllable Om, she's counted as separate from God, from A-U-M. Okay. Then we have the expansion of the Omkara is the Astakshara mantra, Om Namo Narayanaya, right? We don't need to go into that, but here, let's go into the Dwaya mantra is an expansion of the Astakshara mantra. What is the Dwaya mantra? The Dwaya means 2. So it's 2 parts to this mantra. Shriman Narayana Charano Sharanam Prapadye Srimate Narayanaya Namaha. So because the word Sriman Narayana is used, and Srimate Narayanaya Namaha, or even Sri Vaishnavism, whenever we use the word, whenever Sri Vaishnavas tend to use the word Sri a lot, because they want to emphasize not only Sriman Narayana, not only Narayana, but also Sri. Not just Narayana, but Narayana with Sri. They want to emphasize that. Okay, so that's fine. Emphasize that Sri is there because she's the mediator. That's fine. Tengalais have no problem with that. Wadagalais say, no, we always say Sri because it's a package deal. She always comes with him, and she is part of him. They're basically 2 sides of the same coin. He's God, she's also God. There's 2 gods. Okay. So the question is, in the Dwaya mantra, it's a mantra of Sharanagati, a mantra of Prapatti. It says, Sharanam Prapadye. Sharanam Prapadye means, Sharanam means surrender, Prapadye means surrender. So we are going to take shelter of Sriman Narayana. So the Wadagalais will say, yeah, you have to take shelter of Narayana and also Lakshmi, like that. Tengalais don't disagree that we are also taking shelter of Lakshmi. However, in the Dwaya mantra it says, Sriman Narayana Charano. Charano is dual case. It means the 2 feet. Sriman Narayana Charano Sharanam Prapadye. So literally it means take refuge of the 2 feet of Sriman Narayana. Narayana has 2 feet. If we are taking shelter of Narayana and also taking shelter of Lakshmi, there would be 4 feet mentioned, and that would be in a plural. This is just this is a small point that I want to bring up. It's a grammatical argument that the Tengalais make, that if the mantra for surrender of Sri Vaishnavas is to surrender to Shri and Narayana, right? Then it would be 4 feet. It would be a plural ending on Charano, right? And not a dual ending of 2 feet. Yeah? That's a grammatical argument. Okay, so does anybody have any questions about this point? It's a very important point where, what do we think Lakshmi is? Is she considered as a very, very greatest, the most greatest jiva by the Tengalais? Or is she considered to be another exact God who can give liberation and create universes by herself by the Vadagalais? What do you think? Any questions? Any comments?
Well, what about Swamiji? What about? Yeah, one moment. Yeah,
I got it. Yes.
What about if you say that there is only one God, of course, but he has a male and a female aspect, and Lakshmi Devi is the female aspect of God, of the one supreme God.
Okay.
So it's not that there are 2 gods, Lakshmi and Narayan, but there is only one God, of course. But God has both male and female aspects. Isn't that what the Vadagalais?
Okay. All right. Let's take that idea for a minute. So who do you surrender to?
To both at the same time.
But there is no both. There is no both. You just said
there is no both.
You just said there's 2 aspects of the one person. So you're surrendering to that one person. But my question is, so does it matter if you surrender to either aspect? Just like I gave the example of 2 sides of one coin, right?
Yeah, 2 sides of the one coin.
Right.
Yeah.
So does heads or tails matter?
Mm-hmm.
Does heads or tails matter?
Yeah. Well,
I'm asking you. Can you surrender? We're surrendering to Narayana. We're surrendering to. We're chanting Om Namo Narayana. We're surrendering to the 2 feet of Narayana. We're going to the temple of Narayana.
Yeah.
There's another person who goes to a temple of Shakti, a temple of Goddess Lakshmi, a Lakshmi temple, and just surrenders to Lakshmi, right? Is it the same? Is it the same thing? Is it the same thing? And he chants. He only chants the Lakshmi mantra. He only chants the Lakshmi mantra. Will that person attain liberation?
Well, we don't know, of course.
No, we know. We know. Is there any? Yeah, of course we know. Is there any Shastra Pramana? I ask you to give me a Shastra Pramana where it says that Lakshmi is going to give him liberation.
I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know either.
So.
I don't know either. And unless you come up with one, I'll say there isn't one.
Okay.
Okay, so that's my argument against that. Number 1. That's my first argument.
Yeah, right.
My second argument is very simple. What's the relationship between these 2? Is there a relationship between Lakshmi and Narayana?
Yeah, they're lovers. Huh?
Yeah.
They're
husband and wife, they're consorts. Yeah. They have a lot of big relationship. In Gaudiya Vaishnavism, the whole thing is about the relationship between Radha and Krishna, right? There's rasa. Right. Yeah. There's all this sabhava and rasa and prema, the mahabhava. There's all this sort of stuff between them, right? Like that. Okay, you tell me. I'm dressed like a man now, right?
Yeah.
Now I go to my closet and I put on female clothes. Can I have a relationship with myself? Can I love myself?
Yeah.
Is it possible? Is it possible the same person is he schizophrenic? Is God schizophrenic?
Yeah, it looks like.
God is schizophrenic. One part of him thinks like a male, the other part of him thinks like a female, and he's having a love affair with himself.
Yeah, it's just a little strange. Yeah. But
in this world, schizophrenia is a disease. Are we attributing this disease to God?
No, we shouldn't do.
That's my
No,
second. That's my second argument. Okay.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
You want me to go on?
Yeah. 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 Please go on. Yeah. I
Okay.
like
So
this. Yeah.
you're okay. So then now, how does Lakshmi mediate? How does Lakshmi mediate between
Yeah,
the
that's a
jiva
very
and God?
strong point. Very
How
strong
does
point.
Lakshmi mediate between God and the jiva?
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
If let's say there's a business deal, and there's somebody who's a buyer and somebody who's a seller, right? Because I used to be I was in real estate. So let's say that, something like that. There's a deal anyway, some sort of deal going on, and you have a mediation, some problem. You have a mediation, you have somebody in the middle. If the person in the middle is actually the person on the other side, if the mediator isn't in the middle, but is actually on the other side, if he's been bribed, if the mediator's been bribed by the other side and he's actually on their side, how is the deal fair? How is it actually a compromise? How is Lakshmi invoking the mercy of God if she's God already? It's just it's a farce. The mediation becomes a farce because the person in the middle's been bribed by the person on one side. So we said, oh yeah, we went to mediation. We worked it all. We worked out the compromise in mediation. That we had somebody in the middle who took into consideration both sides. We didn't bribe the judge. Oh, but you did bribe the judge. The judge is you. You're the judge. You're the judge. You're the jury. You're the executioner. How is that fair? How is that fair? How is that mediation? How is she a Purushakara then?
Yeah, right. Yeah.
So that's my third argument. That's my third argument. Okay. You want me to go on? You want me to go on? I don't see. It's not a possibility. I cannot see a possibility. Okay. All right. What about this farce about she can give liberation, she can create universes, but she doesn't because she somehow or other she. Have you ever met somebody who said, "Oh yeah, you go to the gym, and you can press 200 pounds, you can press 100 kilos, yeah, whatever it is, or 150 kilos, you can press it, right?" And your friend comes in there and comes in and says, "Oh, I can do that." "Oh, sit down and do it. Go ahead, show me." Like that. I could do it. I choose not to. This is what you hear from the Mayavadis, the Advaitins. They say, "I am God. The difference between you and me is that I've studied Advaita Vedanta and I know that I'm Brahman. I am God. I am God." And then you say to the person, "Oh, you're God? Okay, create a universe." Don't even create a universe. Just create an ant.
Yeah, right.
Create anything.
Yeah.
Create anything out of nothing. Create something like that. I can do it, but I don't choose to do it. Nonsense argument. Okay, that's my fourth argument. Okay, should we go on? Can we keep going on with this?
Well, if the others are okay with that, but I'm already convinced. No problem.
Yeah,
I think
I'm
the
convinced too.
view is the
Okay,
best.
so now wait a minute. So then people get upset. If you start arguing like this with Wadagalais, they get upset. They get very upset.
Yeah.
You hate Lakshmi. You don't like.
Oh yeah, they say that.
They'll say, yeah.
Yeah.
No, that's not true. The Tengalais don't hate Lakshmi.
No.
We're just monotheists. We only believe there's one God, and we don't believe that she can be. That we don't. Yeah. We understand that we don't believe that she can be equal to or greater than Sriman Narayana. And that's because otherwise, look, it opens the door to a lot of problems. If you say that there can be more than one God, then why only two? Yeah. Why only two? Why is it? Maybe we say maybe Narayana's God, maybe Lakshmi's God. Well, what about Bhudevi? What about Neela Devi? What about Vishvaksena? What about Namalwar? What about the Acharyas? What about Ramanujan? Maybe. What about this guy? What about that guy? What about my guru? What about, what about me? Maybe I'm God too. Maybe in liberation, maybe I can do it too. Maybe once I get liberated, maybe I can create universes. Maybe I can give liberation. Maybe I become like that too. Maybe I'm also God. Maybe the Advaitins are right. Maybe it's all just Brahman and we just have to realize it and we'll all be one ultimately. Yeah? That's what it leads to. That's my fifth argument.
That's true.
Fifth
That's
argument.
true. Fifth argument.
Fifth
Five
argument.
already.
Play it back later if you want to go through them. But there's so many arguments against this. So many arguments against this. That's why I don't agree with him. He sees some chauvinism there. He's talking about common sense and stuff like that. I do not believe that you can find that in the Shastra. And basically, if you find it in the Shastra, you find it in a lower Shastra. In the Veda, you won't find it. Which is why I quoted the Shruti, that in the beginning there was one and the one became many.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
So the thing is when the Lord takes his avatara, that's fine. But when we never say the Lord takes his avatara and then the Lord expands also into Lakshmi. Do we ever say that? We don't say that. Why don't we say what in Pancharatra, like I explained Pancharatra to you, there's the original personality of God in Paravasudeva. He becomes the Chaturvyuha. Then from the Chaturvyuha, then you've got the Vibhava incarnations, Leela avatars, etc. And then you've got the Antayamin, the super soul, and you've got the deity in the temple. So when we say there are Das avatars, right? So let's say the Lord comes and he incarnates, he expands himself, and he comes down to this world as an avatar. Well, why don't we say the Lord Narayana expanded as Rama? We do. We say Lord Narayana expanded and he came down as Rama avatar, Krishna avatar, right? Whatever. Narasimha avatar. Why don't we say he expanded himself as Rama and he expanded himself as Sita? But we never say that. We never say he expanded himself as Rama. It's nowhere in the scripture that he expanded himself as Rama, then expanded as Sita. So why would we believe that Sita and Rama are the same, that Radha and Krishna are the same, that Lakshmi and Narayana are the same? Why would we believe that? It doesn't make any sense. It's not there in the scriptures. It isn't there in the scriptures. And it goes against what's said in the Upanishads, in the Shruti. So we don't accept it. Can't accept it. So as much as they may like it, we love Mother Lakshmi. We love Sri Devi like that. We have great respect for her and we surrender to her. And she's a mediator in the same way as the Guru is a mediator between us and God. And as in that role as a Purushakara, she's essential. She's essential. But at the same time, we have examples of Prapatti where she wasn't there. Right? Here comes argument number 6. Is she essential? If she's part of God, if she's actually two parts of the same coin, then the heads and tails of a coin are essential to the coin. You can't have the heads without the tails. So they're both there, right? So that would mean in all Prapatti, in all liberations, in all the giving of liberation, Lakshmi would always be there. But where is Lakshmi in Vibhishana Sharanagati? Vibhishana comes to Rama and surrenders. Where's Sita? Sita's in Sri Lanka. Draupadi surrenders to Krishna. Krishna's in Dwarka, and she actually is liberated by Krishna's name, by calling out Govinda, and by letting go of her sari.
That's a very good argument.
Where's Lakshmi? Where's Lakshmi?
She's
Where's
Lakshmi? Yeah.
Where's Lakshmi at this point? Where's Rukmini or Lakshmi or whoever? Yeah.
Sure. Yeah.
So I mean, you could take that as argument number 7 or 6 or whatever we're up to now. Anyway, the point is that there's an emphasis. Look, I don't blame Waddigalais for putting forward this argument. I don't blame them for that. You know, Sri Devi is essential. If you look at the Sharanagati Gadya, she's the mediator. She's there, like that. But we don't see. We see in actual property that sometimes it's possible to directly go to the Lord and just surrender. Right? Rama says, just say my name once and, you know, say I'm yours, and that's it. I'll protect you. Okay, but anyway, there are other statements in the scriptures, you know, about how she's a Purushakara and she's there. She's very important, and she's mentioned. Shriman Narayana Charanoshalampa, Shriman Srimati Narayana Namaha. She's mentioned in the mantra. Definitely, she's in Om. She's in the Om, right? That's why I said to one of our teachers recently, because the Waddigalais, they give the mantra to the ladies and to the Sudras without Om, because they say Om's a Vedic mantra and we can't give Om to the ladies or the Sudras, so we give them Am. But Am is just A and M, no U. And the U stands for Lakshmi. So my question to the Waddigalais is, if Lakshmi is so important and integral to you, then why would you give a mantra to women and Sudras without you, which represents Lakshmi?
Yeah.
If Lakshmi is so important to you.
Yeah, right.
Right? So it is not that Tengalais hate Lakshmi. It's not that we want to exclude Lakshmi. We don't. We want everything in its place and not in its wrong place. The right place for Lakshmi is in between. The wrong place for Lakshmi is to say that she's Narayana. That's all we're saying. That's all we're saying. We're saying everything in its correct place. That's all. Okay. So any other points, any other queries, any other ideas? Because it's one of these things that you'll find in all these different Vaishnava groups and things like that. People don't really understand what is this Shakti Tattva, because in Vedanta there's no real explanation about it, because there's only 3 realities, 3 categories. There's God, the souls, and matter. So you can say she's a personification of the universe, Prakriti, you know? You could say that. You can say that. But you know, normally we don't go to that extent of discussing Lakshmi like that. But but in any case, it's misunderstood, because like in Gaudiya Vaishnavism, what is Chaitanya? Who is Chaitanya? Is he Krishna? That he is Krishna himself in the mood of Radharani. In the mood of Radharani. Or is he Sri Krishna Chaitanya, Radha Krishna Nahi Anya? He's Radha and Krishna combined. Well, wait a minute. Is he Krishna in the mood of Radha? Or is he Krishna and half Radha? Right? Is he therefore greater than Krishna? But Krishna is only Krishna. Right? There's Krishna and there's Radha, and they're separate. So if you put them together, is it better? Yeah, they think it's better. Okay, must be better. So then Chaitanya is better than Radha Krishna because he's combined in one form. And what if you worship Gadadhar and Chaitanya? What is that? Is that Radha and Krishna? Gadadhar's Radha. Chaitanya is Radha Krishna. So if you worship Gaur Gadadhar, you're worshiping Radha and Krishna. What is that? Why? Why do you do that? Why do you need to worship Gaur Gadadhar? Just worship Chaitanya. Chaitanya is supposed to be Radha and Krishna together, combined, right? Or at least Krishna in the mood of Radha. So is he Krishna in the mood of Radha, who has Radha alongside him as Gadadhar, or is he Radha and Krishna combined, in which case you don't need to worship Gadadhar next to him because he's already inherently in him. The Bodhisattva might also say, look, Lakshmi is inherent on every Narayan deity has a Srivatsa, and the Srivatsa represents Lakshmi. You always see Lakshmi's there on the chest of Vishnu deities. They carve, in Pancharatra, they carve a little triangle, or they carve a little form of Lakshmi on the right side of the chest of, the left side or right side? Dakshas Sanodi Shivatsana Maha. Yeah, on the right side. On the right side of the chest of Vishnu deities, there's a little mark, and that's the Srivatsa. It's sometimes talked as a mole or a curl, a little curl of hair. But it's also in iconography. It's represented as an inverted triangle, which represents the feminine power, and or a little form of Lakshmi on the right side of the chest. So inherent with all Vishnu deities. So why do we have these temples where we have Lord Vishnu in the temple, and then we have another, like you go to Sri Rangam, Ranganath's in the temple, he's got his deity room, and then there's another whole deity room for Lakshmi. Well, why do we need to have another deity room for Lakshmi? She's already there on the chest. They're one side of the same coin. They're two sides of the same coin. So why do we need to do this? It's because we think of them as one, but they're also different, which is part of Vedanta, is that they're one and different. They're one and different, just like we're also one and different. The universe is also one and different, right? When we say Beda, means one and different. When we say Vishishta Dvaita, we means one, but it's also different. All of these doctrines, except for Shankara and Madhva, they're all types of difference and oneness at the same time. So if you're confused about Lakshmi and you think, oh, is she one or is she different? Guess what? She's both. Because why? Because we're also one and different with God. The world, the universe is also one and different with God. Right? Am I right? The universe is one and different from God. The souls are one and different from God. So what I see here is that you've just got the same old oneness and difference argument here. So the Vatagalis want to emphasize the oneness of Lakshmi with God. And the Tengalis want to emphasize the separateness of Lakshmi from God. But in fact, the philosophy is that everything is both one and different from God. Everything, not just Lakshmi. It's not just an argument about Lakshmi. It's an argument about everything. So to say that she's a little bit separate from God is not putting her down, because the jivas are also separate from God, a little bit, but they're also one with God. We're also one with God. We're also separate from God, right? In a certain way, and that way is slightly different according to different sampradayas and different sects. But basically, everybody's saying the jivas are one and different from God. So to say that she is a part of the jiva, the gang of jivas, is not a put down. They think it's a put down. So normally you see, the Tengalais say that Lakshmi is part of the jiva koti. Koti means a million, 10 million means crore. So out of the millions of jivas, she's one of them, like that. Yeah, she's a very great one, like that. Doesn't mean that she's not also one with God in the same way that the jivas are also one with God. I think that's also another argument. So it's not a put down. Tengalais are not putting down Lakshmi. Right? What we're saying is that she has a position, and her position is in the middle as mediatrix. And because her position is in the middle, you can't put her on one side. You can't really put her on the other side either. And this can be an argument by both. The Vatagalis can say, you can't put her totally on that side. And the Tengalais can say, you can't put her totally on that side. But between the two, we want to emphasize that she's not God, because there can't be two gods. Whereas she can be the greatest the greatest one on this side, slightly to this side, let's say. She can be the greatest one on the side of the jivas on this. Because why? Because she's also subservient to the Lord. So either you are the Sheshi or the Shesha. Either you are the master or the servant. Right? What were these? We were discussing these 9 different relationships that we have with God, right? Sheshi Shesha is one of them. So there's the master. God's the master, and so we can say, okay, she's the mistress. She's also our mistress. We see her as the master like that too. But she has a master, and that is God, right? So the Wadagalais might say, if you talk to Wadagalais, they would say, oh, they cooperate with each other. You can't really say that Narayan is the master of Lakshmi. You can. She is not the master. She is subservient to him. If that sounds chauvinist, okay, let it be so. All right, I can't, you can't get away from it. He is independent. He's a supreme independent. Everything is dependent upon him. She's dependent upon him. The universe is dependent upon him. Jiva is dependent upon him. Everything is dependent upon him. He is the master. He is everything else is serving him. Even her, she's serving him. Why do we always see she is down there massaging his feet? Why do we never see her massaging his feet? I mean, him massaging her feet. Right? There might be some Leela. There might be some Leela in Gaudiya Vaishnavism where Krishna massages Radha's feet or whatever like that. We're not talking about Leelas. We're talking about what's the total position of Lakshmi is that she is the consort. She's subservient to God. If she's subservient to God, she's not equal to God, and she's not greater than God, and therefore she's not God. Simple as that. Like that. Exactly what the nature of their relationship is, we can wait until we go to moksha. We'll know. Now we don't know, but we just have to stop. We have to stop people speculating that there's 2 gods. That's all. And we are also, because once there's 2 gods, then okay, who do we surrender to? Who's going to give liberation? We can just forget about Narayan if Lakshmi's God. If Lakshmi's God and she can give liberation, then just forget about Narayan. Who cares about Narayan? Right? There's some Gaudiya sects or there's some sects in Vrindavan like that. Harivams, Harivams and the Harivamsa sect, the Radha Balabhas, right? For them, Radha's God. Their idea is Radha's God, Krishna's her lover. Who cares? Who cares really about Krishna? Radha's important. Who cares about Krishna? He's there and he's serving her and he's her lover, but she's the most important thing. It even comes into Gaudiya Vaishnavism a little bit like that. People get fixated on Radha, which is
the Gaudiyas the Gaudiyas they also say you cannot have a relationship directly with Krishna, but you can only serve Radha, or even you can serve the gopis or serve the Shaktis.
But that's we can't agree. Where does it say anywhere in Shastra you can't have a direct relationship with God?
So the Tengalayas, they say you can.
Gaudiya's idea is that the greatest thing is to be a manjari, and a manjari serve Radha.
Right.
Okay, that's their idea. Okay. But there are many other people serving God. There are many other people serving God in different relationships, in different rasas. Right? They're not also, the cowherd boys are not serving Radha. The cows are not serving Radha. Right? No. They're serving Krishna directly.
Right.
Like that. So they just say, if you want, they first of all, they say, okay, Radha and Krishna are different and they have this relationship, and the only person who can experience Mahabhava is Radha, the greatest form of love. And even Krishna can't experience it, they say. And therefore he comes as Chaitanya to experience that. Because he never experienced as much love as Radha has for him. He never experienced that. So in order to experience that, he became Chaitanya, and therefore he could try to experience Radha's love for himself. Okay, so then Chaitanya is better than Krishna, because Krishna doesn't understand Radha's love, but Chaitanya does, and he's also Krishna, and he's also Radha. Wow, and Chaitanya is better than Krishna. Who is God then? It's very confusing, because it's basically one-upmanship. Somebody says this is the supreme, and then somebody else says this is the supreme, and then keep coming up with different ideas that are not given in scripture, but which are just emotional ideas based on some, idea that they have. This sounds good. This sounds better, like that. But where is it? Where's the Shastric basis for this stuff? And then they may say, oh, well, we have our acharyas, and they've written these books. They've had these emotional ideas, and therefore we follow these emotional ideas. But where is it given in some basic common ancient Shastra, or even the Vedas, that this is an idea, that the Supreme Person, Krishna? How can it be one and the same? How can you have, first of all, if you read Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, you have this whole idea that Narayana is somehow less than Krishna, right? And and he could have 60 qualities, and Krishna has 64 qualities, and then Brahma and Shiva have 56 qualities, or 55 qualities, excuse me, and then like this, and then most jivas can only have up to 50 qualities. Okay. And then most jivas can become Brahma and Shiva sometimes. So what do they get? They get more qualities. So if a jiva with a maximum of 50 qualities can become Brahma or Shiva, when there's no jiva, when Lord Narayana doesn't come himself and incarnate as, or Krishna doesn't incarnate and take that position, according to Gaudiya Vaishnavas, Shiva and Brahma are positions, right? They're positions. Indra's a position. These are all positions which are filled by jivas in different, universes. And if there's no jiva which is qualified, then the Lord comes himself and takes that post, right? So how does a jiva who can have maximum 50 qualities somehow become Brahma and Shiva who have 55 qualities? Well, if that jiva can now go from 50 to 55, why can't he go to 60? Why can't he become Narayana? He got 5 more. Why can't he just get another 4 more? Why can't he get another 14 more and become Krishna? Why can't Narayana get 4 more and become Krishna? Okay, if you say they're all fixed in stone, these qualities, no jiva can be more than 50. Then that means Brahma and Shiva can never be jivas. Is that right? That's not their philosophy. They say Brahma and Shiva can be jivas in certain circumstances. But then they say Shiva and Vishnu are the same. Advaita Acharya is an incarnation of Mahavishnu and Shiva. How can he be both Shiva and Vishnu at the same time? And even Haribhakti Vilas says, oh, you have to worship Shiva and you have to worship Vishnu as the same. But then they say, if you think the name of Shiva is equal, or the worship of Shiva is equal to the worship of Vishnu, that's an offense in the holy name. All these contradictory ideas and statements, but none of them are based on scripture. Then you have, and they have rationales, of course. I'm not saying, look, if you want to be a Gaudiya Vaishnava, go ahead, follow your acharyas, and they have their ideas about why you can do this and why you can't do this. So I'm not saying if you have faith in that system, go ahead and do it. But when Sri Vaishnavas look at it, they look at it from the point of view of is there a pramana? Is there a proof in the scripture of what they're saying? So getting back to that point, Gaudiyas say Krishna is the highest. He's the Adi Purusha. He's the Paravasudeva. He's the original personality of Godhead. And in him must be all qualities. Am I right? According to Gaudiya Vaishnavism, Krishna is the fountainhead of all. He's the source of all incarnations. He is
Right.
it, right? There isn't anything outside of him that didn't come from him. He's the source. When we, in Vedantic terms, Brahman is defined as yatato atato brahmaji janmadhyasya yataha, that from which everything emanates. So that is Krishna. From Krishna, everything emanates. But then they say Chaitanya experiences Mahabhava, which Krishna can't experience. Krishna incarnated as Chaitanya to experience Mahabhava because he couldn't experience it as Krishna. God, the original God from which everything comes, could not experience something. How is that possible? How is that possible? So they're saying the original God, which has everything, which can experience everything and has all qualities, doesn't have a quality. And that quality, which he doesn't have, he incarnates as Chaitanya in order to get that quality, which he gets from thinking like Radha or being Radha. But Radha is also Krishna. I mean, you know, it doesn't make a lot of sense to me. You know, I'm sure that they have their ways of explaining all these things, but it doesn't. It's not exactly straightforward or logical, and it certainly isn't scriptural. So, you know, like that. So this is a problem. The Tengalais and the Wadagalais have had another 500 years at least to think about all these things. So the Sri Vaishnavas, over those 500 years, they've sort of defined it all down to these basic arguments, and that's where they get into these. That's why they cut it down to this basic thing. And I think the Gaudiyas just haven't had enough time to think about it, because if they actually think about it, they're saying Chaitanya is greater than Krishna, but they're saying Krishna is the greatest. Yeah. Okay. So anyway, let's move on. We've already talked about this one a little bit, so we can just read it through quickly.
Yeah, can I ask one?
Go ahead.
Can I ask one more question? Yeah,
go
one
ahead,
more
go
question.
Ahead. Sure, no problem.
You were mentioning some time ago. You were mentioning, Lakshmi is one of the names of Lakshmi is Prakruti. Yeah, she is nature, Mother Nature.
Okay.
Like
Yeah. Well, the thing is,
so yeah,
in the Veda it says Parasha Shakti Vividaya Shriyate, that the supreme absolute truth, Sriman Narayana, has multi-different energies. So one energy is Prakriti. Prakriti is one energy. In the Gita, he says it's my separated energy. Right? Earth, water, fire, air, ether.
Yeah, right.
It's a separated energy. Okay. So we don't really equate the universe with Lakshmi.
No? Okay.
No. But I mean, you know, in the sense that we create, in the sense there, he has different energies, but look, the Shri, Bhu, and Neela, all the different goddesses, you know, Sita and Rukmini, whatever, we associate them all with Lakshmi in one sense, but in another sense, they have some distinctions. There's some distinctions also. So we're getting more. You know, I'm not prepared to talk in that amount of detail about it. You know, because we would have to go into a lot of different scriptures and look at the pramanas for it to try to understand it exactly. But just understand that there's God, there's Shaktiman and Shakti. There's God and his energies. So you're either God or you're the energy of God.
Right.
There's either God or the energy of God. What the Vadagalais are saying is there's God, there's another God, and then there's the energy of God. And we say no, there's God and his energies. And one of those energies is Lakshmi. They're saying no, there's God, and that God is Lakshmi Narayana. And then there's their energies, which is okay. I mean, you know, it's just a slight difference in in emphasis, really. It's really just a slight difference in emphasis, like I said. They're emphasizing the oneness, and we're emphasizing the difference. Okay. Anyway, so powers of Shri, the Wadagalais say, Lakshmi has equal power to Sriman Narayana to grant liberation, and as I said, also to create universes. In other words, she can serve as the goal and the means, and one can therefore surrender to Shri only. Now, I don't know. I've never met a Wadagalai that actually said that you can just surrender to Lakshmi only, but maybe they do. He's saying they do. Tengalai say, Sriman Narayana alone has the power to grant liberation. Shri is the universal reconciler and the mediatrix, female mediator between the jivas and Sriman Narayana. She's not fully divine, and therefore, being a jiva herself. Let's get this straight. Everything is divine. The jiva is divine. The universe is, everything's divine because everything comes from the divine. Okay, so when he says not fully divine, he means that not fully God. She has a natural affinity and compassion for the jiva. She also has an intimate relationship with the Lord, and therefore is in a position to influence him to grant liberation, but she herself cannot do it. That's the Tengalai thing. And he says his position, this is Rama Ramanuja says, again, we lean towards the Wadagalai position. Perhaps Shri chooses not to act on her own behalf, but the Tengalai position is hard to support from the scriptures, and I don't agree with him. Because in the scriptures, it's very obvious that the only giver of liberation is Mukunda, is the Supreme Lord Narayana. No one else. We never saw an example of Lakshmi giving moksha. So, moving on. Concerning the God's grace, the Wadagalais say, divine grace is cooperative, that is, it's earned through the performance of acts of merit, right? It comes as a reward for the self-initiated efforts made by the spiritual aspirant. Sriman Narayana can use an excuse he chooses, any excuse he uses to choosing to bestow his grace, but it does not come completely free without some good deed on the part of the individual, however slight it may be. And the Tengalai say, divine grace is irresistible. It is the free gift of Sriman Narayana given to whomsoever he may choose. It cannot be earned in any way from any form of spiritual or worldly practice, such as good works, charity, sacrifice, worship, study. We can add to that Karma Yoga, Jnana Yoga, Bhakti Yoga. But we do agree that Sriman Narayana does use Yatrit Shukrita. Gaudias talk about Shukriti. Agyata Shukriti. Agyata means unknown Shukriti, or good works, accidental good works, right? But as an excuse for bestowing grace. Accidental good works are deeds that are unintentional, have unintentional positive effects. For example, weary travelers may use one's veranda without permission for rest, or a man chasing a cow around a temple in order to catch it is considered to have piously undertaken the circumambulation of the shrine. We have other examples of, somebody who was fasting unknowingly on Ekadasi, another person who was sitting in a tree in Shivratri and throwing bilva leaves down and landed on a lingam underneath, whatever. This unknowing acts, pious acts, okay? And then he just says very clearly, he agrees with the Tengalai position. So what is this? This is one of the famous, they're all famous, but this is one of the most famous, is cooperative grace or causeless grace. It is the real cat and monkey logic analogy, right? The Wadagalais are like the monkey. The mother monkey has the baby monkey. The baby monkey, however, has to make a self-effort. He has to hang on to the mother. Otherwise, he'll fall off when the mother goes from tree to tree. When the mother cat, however, picks up the kitten does nothing, just lies there. The mother cat comes and picks it up and saves it, like that. So that is cooperative grace for the Wadagalais, and causeless grace or causeless mercy by the Tengalais. It's the difference between faith and works. In the Christian tradition, it's the difference between Catholics and Protestants. The Wadagalais would be the Catholic who believe in faith and works, that that faith without works is empty, and the Tengalais that believe that faith alone, by faith alone and not by works, one is saved. Yeah. Okay, so that's a very common one. Do we need to go more in depth about that? We could, because obviously in many religions they have this distinction between faith and works, or they have the faith and works side and they have just the faith side. Yeah. Do we need to go into that? Is there any questions about that?
Yeah, that's a very clear point. Yeah, sure.
Yeah, I think it's pretty clear. Yeah,
very clear. Yeah,
okay. Concerning God's maternal love, or vatsalya, the word vatsalya, the word vatsa means a calf, means a small, a baby cow. Yeah, vatsa. So vatsalya means like a calf, the affection like a calf, or like a mother cow has to a calf. The term vatsalya, which describes one of the qualities of the Lord, conveys the idea of the love of a cow for its calf. The cow is in the stall bellows or makes a sound for its calf, and out of natural love and concern allows the milk to ooze out of the cow's udder, even though the calf may not yet be sucking the milk. The Wadagalais say that Sriman Narayana's maternal love, or vatsalya for the jiva, means that he turns a blind eye to one's fault and ignores the transgressions one has committed, or the dosha adrishtatvam, right? That means adrishta means he doesn't see the faults. He turns away and doesn't see the faults. Just like in Tirupati, they have the big tilak that goes over the eyes of the deity, and they say he doesn't like to see the faults of the world. That's why he wears this big tilak, so he doesn't have to look at all the sins that are going on, because he doesn't want to think that people are sinning, so he wants to think better of them and liberate them. Okay. Although he also continues to ignore all the transgressions committed after Prapatti, he still requires some atonement and administers some light form of punishment to the errant Prapana. Okay, so the Wadagalais say that you get initiated, you do Samashrinam, and the Samashrinam is not really Prapatti for them. The Panchasamskara, the initiation, is not really surrender for them. Okay, they say, most of them, what they do is they wait until later in their life and they have a separate ceremony which they call Paranyasam. And Paranyasam means depositing, Nyasa means depositing, Para means the burden of sins. So a lot of them, what they do is they say, look, when I'm young, I'm probably going to commit some sins. I'm going to go into business. I'm going to cheat some people. Maybe I'm going to drink alcohol. Maybe I'm going to commit some other sins. Whatever I'm going to do. They're Sri Vaishnavas. They're born Sri Vaishnavas. Maybe I'm going to do some sins. I'm going to cross the ocean, which is sinful or whatever, according to some shastras. Okay, so I'm going to create some sins. When I get really old and my body is not so passionate or not so much in ignorance, then I can retire and commit myself to retirement japa and all these things. I can do everything, all the spiritual things when I'm retired, and then I'll give up the sins. So at that time, they go back to their guru and they say, okay, now I want to do Bharanyasa. So they make a promise not to criticize devotees or Vaishnavas, not to eat outside their house, eat other people's food, or eat in restaurants and things like that, and not to worship any other demigods or any other important people or whatever, but only fixate themselves on Sriman Narayana. And then they do what's called Prayaschitta Prapatti, and they do surrender to the Lord at that time. And then after that time, they say, I'm not going to do any more sin until I die. But even then, they probably do some more sins unknowingly. And at the time of death, they also go through this last rites sort of thing where the guru or somebody comes and absolves them of their sins. Just like in the Catholic Church, when somebody's dying, somebody comes and says, I absolve you of all the sins. Or once a week, they go to confession and they absolve them of the sins because they're continually sinning. They can't stop sinning. Nobody can stop sinning. Everybody in this material world is probably going to continue sinning or even doing good works too. So those good works and bad works are going to accumulate as karmas. So the question is, well, how do we deal with that? We deal with that by by doing these two ceremonies of Bharanyasa and Prayaschitta Prapatti later in life, because that's when we're cutting down the sin to a minimum, like that. Problem is with Phawadigal eyes, they don't know when their life is going to end. They could die when they're very young and not do it. So that's a bit problematic, okay? So Tangle eyes, however, say maternal love of Sriman Narayan is so overpowering that actually he actually relishes, as it were, the faults and errors of the jiva, dosha bhogatvam. So in other words, God sees our faults. He sees our sins. He sees everything. He doesn't look away. He doesn't pretend not to see that we're sinning. He sees it. Not only does he see it, but he's not upset that we broke the law of the Shastra. He's not upset that we made the sins. He's actually enjoys it that we sin. It's called sabhogya hetika kripa. It gives him an excuse to save us. He feels, look, there's a sinner. Let me save him. Right? Patita Pavana. He's like, he's the person. It's like the story in the Bible, the prodigal son. When there were two sons. One of them stayed with the father and worked with the father and was always surrendered to the father, and the other one said, forget you. And he went off and he just did his own thing, and he fell into all sorts of problems, and eventually remembered that he had a father and went back and came back to the father. And the father was so happy when the other guy came back, when that other son came back. He had a huge feast and he honored him so much. What about the person who was loyal to him that whole time? No, he was more happy with the sinner, with the guy who left. So this is a similar story here. The Tengalais are saying that God sees the sins of the world and he rejoices, because it gives him a chance to go and save them. Look at all these people sinning. Oh, therefore I have to go and be an avatar, and I have to go down there and I have to save them. I have to show my compassion and my forgiveness. Otherwise, I can just sit up here in heaven. If everybody's a saint in the material world, I can just sit here in heaven and wait for them to do all the bhakti yoga and come to me like that. But he takes it. He actually relishes coming and doing it and saving us, either himself or sending some devotee, some acharya to do it. So he takes it as a pretext for showing his compassion and forgiveness. And there's no need for those people to do atonement for their sins or transgressions committed even after they surrendered. So the Tengalais say, you surrender once and once only, and that's it. Finish. You surrendered. Because the Wadagalais say, oh, you surrender, but maybe you did a sin afterwards. You have to surrender again. Oh, maybe you did another sin, and maybe you have to, at the time of death, you probably did some sin, so you probably want to make another surrender right then. There's multiple surrenders. And when you see Wadagalais, they're always doing obeisances 4 times, minimum 4 times, or 2 times at least. More than once. They always have to offer obeisances more than once. And this is the practice that comes out of this doctrine that they have. Whereas the Tengalais, you see, they pay obeisances 1 time only. Why? Because surrender, their doctrine is surrender is 1 time only. Once you surrender, you have nothing to surrender a second time. Right? If you see a war movie, right, and the people of different sides are fighting, and the guys on one side, they put their hands up and they say, I surrender. Right? And then they get them and they take their weapons and they tie them up and they take them off to the prison camp, like that. And when they're in the prison camp, do they put their hands up again and say, I surrender again? No, because they already surrendered. They've got nothing else to surrender. They're surrendered. That's it, finished. They're surrendered. But, if you surrender to God, you're surrendering yourself, your mind, your body, your words, everything. You're surrendering everything to God. What then have you got to surrender a second time? And the Tengalais say, even the fact that you think that you can surrender something to God, that's a sin. That's not right. That's against the nature of the soul. The real nature of the soul is that you're already a slave. You just don't know it. You just have to realize that you're a slave. You have to realize that actually you're completely dependent upon him. You have stolen his property, yourself, his property. You are his property. And you have stolen it away from him by thinking that you're your own person, that you have some independence. You don't have any independence. You're not the doer. He's the doer of everything. And you think that you're independent, and that, oh, I think, I'll surrender to God. Hey, you're already his. You just have to come to that realization. So these are two different ideas, okay? And he says, Ramanujacharya says, we agree with the Tengalai position, but caution against neglect of one's spiritual practice and socio-religious duties, which is a possibility inherent in the Tengalai position. So people will say, okay, there's no need for me to do anything. I just say, yeah, I'm surrendered to God and he's in my heart and I'm going to go to moksha, and they just sit around and eat peanuts and watch TV, right? They don't do anything, because that's the argument that the Catholics have against the Protestants. That's the argument that the Wadagalais have against the Tengalais. You guys are just, what? You don't need to do anything. So you don't do any japa, you don't do any puja, you don't do anything. And you think that you can just sin and, it's no problem. I'll be, at the end of life, I'll get moksha. But the fact is that we don't see anybody, we don't see any Tengalais doing that. Nobody's doing that. We don't see any Protestants doing that either. The Protestants don't preach. The Protestants don't preach that, okay, we've baptized you, in the church like that. Now just go and be a complete atheist. Do whatever you like. Do whatever sin you want. They don't preach that. Nobody preaches that. Nobody preaches that. They just say whatever you do or don't do, you're going to be forgiven. Why? Because you surrender to God. And Rama says, Sakrit Eva Prapannaya. And this is the problem. The Gaudiyas don't know about this because they only read Krishna, 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 Krishna. They're fixated on Krishna avatar, which is fine, which is great. If you're into Krishna, that's fine. It's also there in the Charma Sloka in Bhagavad Gita 1866. Krishna says, Sarvadhamam Pritijam Mamekam Sharanam Vraja Aham Tvasarapapibhyo Moksheshri Masajaha. He says, just surrender unto me, abandon all varieties of religion, surrender unto me. I'll protect you from all sinful activities. Don't fear. He says that. But then they say, well, what does that mean? What does surrender mean? Then they say, well, surrender means you have to chant 64 rounds a day, or you have to chant 16 rounds a day, or you have to follow these four rules. You have to get up early in the morning. You have to do this. You have to do that. You have to do the other. That's what surrender means. And if you don't do that, you're not surrendered. But what Krishna's actually saying is, Sarva Dharman Parityaja, all the things you thought you had to do, give up that idea that you have to do them. He's not saying give up doing them. That's the problem. So this is what the Wadagalais will say, or Catholics will say, the Protestants. They'll say, oh, you just want to give up everything. Give up doing everything. Give up doing all these good works. God never says to give up doing the good works. God says, we all have to work. Even I work. He says in the Gita, he says, even I work. And if I didn't work, as an example, nobody would work, right? So he says, I work, and you should follow my example. And you should worship, you should do what's in the scriptures. You should do those works. He never says give up the work. He says give up the mentality that the work that you're doing is taking you to moksha, that you are the doer and that you are gaining the fruit of that work. Give up the fruit of the work. Don't give up the work. So Tengalais are not giving up the work. They're still doing it. They're still doing devotional activities. But they're giving up the idea. Even Wadagalais are also giving up the idea. They're giving up the idea that by doing that work, they're reaching, it's not a bargain. It's not karma kanda. It's not a transaction. I offer you a flower, you give me liberation. No, it's not like that. Like it used to be in the, I put a flower at the feet of the guru and he gives me a cookie, a guru puja. It's not like that. It's not a trade-off like that. He gives you liberation. He's going to give you liberation. Out of his causeless mercy, he's going to give you liberation. There's nothing you can give him that's worth that. There's no trade involved. There's nothing equal to that, like that. So give up the idea that anything that you can do can get you to liberation. There's nothing you can do that can get you anywhere close to liberation. The only thing, therefore, you can do is just surrender and say, it's up to you, Lord. Whatever you want to do, do it. Which is what Chaitanya also said. Even if he crushes me by his embrace, he still is my worshipable Lord, birth after birth. So that is there. It's there. The idea of property or Sharanagati is there in other forms of Vaishnavism, especially Gaudiya Vaishnavism, as well as Sri Vaishnavism. But the Sri Vaishnavas, they have it down, and they have this. They're talking about this idea of causeless grace or caused grace. There's a very interesting story about one of Ramanuja's disciples, Kuridalwar, who had a wife, or Dhanudasa, who had a wife, and he used to always say, whenever he was giving a lecture and say the example of a good devotee, he'd talk about this guy and his wife. They're good devotees, good Vaishnavas. And the sannyasis, who were his sannyas disciples, they got a little bit perturbed, and they said, well, why is it that you always give? Why is it that you always give the example of this guy and his wife as great devotees? Because look, what about the sannyasis? We're also great devotees, right? And he said, okay, go in the evening and the night and steal the gold from his wife, and then come outside and see what happens. And they went, and they were both sleeping at the time, and the sannyasis, they were taking the gold off one side of her body because she was sleeping on one side, and she realized somebody's taking the gold, and she sort of squinted and opened her eyes a little bit, pretended to still be asleep, and she saw it was Ramanuja's disciples, her god brothers, the sannyasis, and they're taking the gold. Well, they must have a good reason for it, she thought. Ramanuja must have sent them. They're not thieves. He must have told them to do that, right? And so she thought, I will pretend to turn over on my other side, and they can take all the other gold. When she started to turn in her sleep like this, then they ran outside, and they watched from the outside. They got afraid that she was going to wake up. So they looked from outside. So she got up, and she woke her husband up, and she said, oh, this is what happened. These disciples of Ramanuja, who sannyasis, came, and they took the gold from one side of my body. And she told her husband. So I was thinking, to cooperate with them, I would pretend to be asleep, but just turn, because obviously they didn't wake me up, so there must be some reason to take it secretly. So I'm just going to pretend to be asleep and turn on my side so they can have the rest of the gold. And her husband said, no, you should have just laid there. They would have turned you themselves if they wanted the gold from the other side. And they were not worried about the gold, losing the gold. They were worried about the difference between active surrender and passive surrender. Active surrender means we surrender, but we still do. We're cooperating with the Lord, and we're doing the works, faith and works. And passive surrender is only by grace alone we're saved. That they would have turned you like that. So the merits of active and passive surrender were being debated by them. And the sannyasis went back to Ramanuja and he said, see, this is why they're great devotees. They're not interested in material things. They're interested only in how to perfect their surrender. Yeah. Whereas when the sannyasis were away, what Ramanuja did was he went into the sannyasi ashram and he ripped off a little piece of cloth from the bottom of each one of sannyasi's drying dhotis. Sannyasis had these lungis, vesties, and he ripped off a piece of cloth enough to make a loincloth, a kopan, from the bottom of each one of the sannyasi's cloths. So when they got up in the morning and they went to get maybe they have only 2 pieces of cloth, and they went to get their fresh piece of cloth that was hanging up, they saw somebody had ripped off a piece of, kopan-sized piece, which you do, when you might want to make kopans, you rip off a piece like that. So they started accusing each other. Well, you must do, who's been making kopans out of my lungi, like that. And Ramanuja came in and found them all arguing, practically killing each other over a little piece of cloth. And Ramanuja said, hey, you guys think that you're advanced people, but you're arguing with each other over a little strip of cloth. And they were not arguing about you stealing their gold. All they could think about was whether they surrendered to you, to me, or to God the proper way. So this is a difference. This is the difference. This is the difference between, I don't know if Wadagalais tell that story. But anyway, the point is, and a lot of sannyasis maybe don't like that story either. I've told that story in Islam before, and sannyasis find that highly offensive. But anyway, it is a story, and it gives you an idea about this Wadagalai Tengalai difference of the cat and monkey. Prabhupada also talks about the cat and monkey, but it's very clear that Gaudiya Vaishnavism is more like the monkey, it's more like the Wadagalai than the Tengalai. And it's clear because we know about the Damodar Leela, where Lord Krishna is tied up by Mother Yasoda, and there's 2 inches, or 2 angulas, it says in Sanskrit. There's 2 inches of rope that she doesn't have. Every time she gets more rope, she's always two inches short. And the Vishwanath Chakravarti, who's an 18th century Gaudiya Acharya, gives a commentary on that, and he says that the 2 inches represent the faith of the devotee or the surrender, the grace of God, and the works of the devotee, the surrender of the devotee. So the devotee has to do something. He has to do something. Surrender is active. It has to be active in Gaudiya Vaishnavism, right? You can't just surrender to God and not chant your rounds and not follow any rules and things like that. Now, maybe you can if you're Raganuga Bhakti. I'm not sure. I'm not sure. Anyway, but the point is, mostly they believe in faith and works, whereas in Sri Vaishnavism, you've got Wadagalai and Tengalais, and they have this slightly different cat and monkey philosophy. So this is that one about cat and monkey. Okay, any questions or comments about that one? About active and passive surrender, cooperative or causeless grace. Big topic, very big topic. As you can see, in Christianity, completely divides the world into Catholics and Protestants. You can also see it in Islam. You can see it in Judaism. You can see it in many, many other major religions too. Okay, so now we're just going to go, maybe we're going to have to do more than one session on this. Number 6, concerning God's compassion. What I say, Srimad Narayan's compassion is such that it's produced in him a desire to relieve the suffering of creatures. His compassion is such that it produces in him a desire to relieve the suffering of creatures. Okay. And Tengalai say, Srimad Narayan's compassion is such that he cannot bear to see the suffering and actually causes vicarious suffering in him. And he says that he believes the Wadagalai position to be more correct because of the idea of the God experiencing any time of suffering is an anathema to his inherent perfection. Okay, so here's the point in this one. Does God suffer? Does God suffer? God doesn't suffer. We can't say God suffers. We agree that we can't say God suffers. But is he concerned? Is he concerned about the living entities, the sinful living entities in the world? Yes, he's concerned about them. It sort of pains him to see them, to do that, right? So what he's saying here is it's a vicarious suffering. I think I say it's a vicarious suffering. It's not real suffering. God doesn't really suffer, okay? But he appears to suffer because it brings out the compassion in him to see the living entities that are sinning in this world, okay? So this is a very subtle thing. Does he actually suffer or doesn't he suffer? In a sense, you can say he suffers because he feels compassion for the living entities who are suffering. It's a vicarious suffering. It's empathy, basically. And it's a good thing. Remember when we said nirguna means without bad qualities? It means having all auspicious qualities. Empathy is an auspicious quality. So this is just the Lord having empathy. He has empathy for the living beings. So I don't see much difference in these two forms here. If anybody else can see a real big difference in them, I can't. Okay, so the Lord has compassion, right? He has compassion because he sees the living entity suffering. But it's not that he doesn't have an opinion about that. He does have an opinion about that, and he does vicariously suffer in the sense of having empathy for the living beings. It's not a real form of suffering. So I don't really see, this is very subtle difference between Wadagalai and Tengalai. Maybe we need to read more about this in Pradesha Mummies. Anybody got any questions about that? I don't see that there's really a big difference to me. I can see both points here, and they're not far apart at all. Anyway, works, karma yoga and jnana yoga. And these two paths are taught in Bhagavad Gita, according to the Vadagalais, are not direct means upaya to God. They're ancillary to the path of devotion, which is the principal means of liberation. They're integral accessories to bhakti yoga. Okay, so, you know, in actual fact, all these things, karma yoga and jnana yoga, they can also be, it's mentioned in Bhagavad Gita that Janaka became perfect by karma yoga. And it's possible to become perfect by jnana yoga, but mostly in the Shastra, it's mostly said that bhakti yoga is the way. Bhakti yoga is the way to become perfect if you are doing a path of self-effort like that. Tengalai say, all these three means, karma, jnana, and bhakti, may lead to liberation. Right. If they're done with the spirit of self-surrender, Prapatti. Yeah, that's four. That's of course true. In each case, it's the motivation and the mindset of the individual which is the determining factor. In other words, and he says we agree with the Tengalai position because it's more in accordance with the teaching of the Gita. Yeah, we do. In actual fact, both Vadagalais and Tengalais don't do bhakti yoga. They all do Prapatti, and they're all doing works. They're all studying. They're all doing jnana yoga. They're all doing bhakti yoga. So it really doesn't matter. This is very sort of subtle thing like this to say whether karma and jnana yogas are actually a way to liberation, or whether. See, also the Vadagalais will tend to say they'll say if you are qualified for bhakti yoga, you should do bhakti yoga if you're qualified for it. But then they say nobody's qualified for it, or they say only certain people are qualified for it, or whatever it is. So, in actual fact, the Tengalais also say that these other paths are not actually the way, because you can do all these other paths, but unless you have that spirit of self-surrender Prapatti, they won't work. Your karma yoga, jnana yoga, and bhakti yoga will not work without self-surrender, without Prapatti. It's part of them. Even one of the parts of Navada Bhakti is Atmani Vedanam, or self-surrender. So without self-surrender, without total surrender, none of these paths work. So why bother to do those paths with self-surrender? Just do self-surrender, just surrender like that. And then after you surrender, you know, you're still here in this material world, you're still living a life. You can do karma, you can do jnana, you can do bhakti while you're waiting for liberation. So any question about that? You just unmute if you have to, if you want to make a comment or a question. Okay, taking refuge of the Lord in Prapatti. I'm getting quite long here. Taking refuge in the Lord, Prapatti. Prapatti is self-initiated act upaya, like bhakti, jnana, and karma yogas, and is therefore one of the four ways of returning, or he said 4 ways of returning, should be, not or returning, of returning to Godhead, although you're never there before, of course, although it is the best. Okay, so what guys are saying that Prapatti is the best, and it's one of the 4. And like I said, Tengalais are saying that Prapatti is the method par excellence. It's the best and the only valid means. The only valid means. It is therefore the means and the end, and therefore not a method like other yogas. Other yogas are upayas. The word upaya means method or a path. Prapatti is not really a path. The Lord is the path. God is the path. He's the upaya. He's the method, right? We're not doing anything. He's doing everything. And therefore, you know, we can't really say it's a type of yoga or it's a type of path or something like that. It's just a recognition that we're subservient to him and that he's got all the power and he's going to do everything. It's a recognition of that, basically. Okay. Who should resort to Prapatti? Okay, so what? according to Wadagalais, those who are incapable of following bhakti yoga and other means because of caste restrictions or gender, women, or sheer helplessness or desire should resort to property. And those, that's what the Wadagalais say. Tengalais say, property is for everyone. And actually, we haven't found any Wadagalais arguing with us yet so far that say this, that only Trivarnikas, Brahmins, Kshatriya, Vaishya males can perform bhakti yoga, and not women or Sudras or Mlechas or Panchamas, people who are low born. We haven't found anybody who's really put that to us yet, but we might find some people to give us that Wadagalai idea. The Tengalai say property is for everybody, whether you're capable or incapable. So if you might be capable of doing karma yoga, jnana yoga, bhakti yoga. You might be capable of doing all those things, but property is the sine qua non, is Latin. It means without which none. Without which none. The best, the only one, the only way to salvation. To attempt to qualify it as better or worse, or to compare it to other means, is denigrating it, its greatness, right? And he says both positions are equally defensible. And I say, it's okay. So we don't need to, I agree that in the fact that we don't need to put down karma yoga, jnana yoga, or even bhakti yoga. If people want to do those things, if they have faith in those things, let them do those things. But in actual fact, without property, without surrender, they're all actually surrendered inside, right? They're all surrendered inside. Otherwise, they're not going to make it. If they're not surrendered, if they don't take surrender as a part of these yogas, they can't make it. It can't work. It has to be there. Surrender has to be there. And the real point is, we're not the doer. We're not the doer, so how can we do something? How can we take to a path of self-effort if we're not the doer? Anyway, doesn't make any sense. Conditions for taking refuge. Bhagavad Gita 1866 says, Sarva Dharma Pariteja. We all know the sloka. What do I say? This means if you're incapable of following other paths as ordained in the scriptures, give them up and surrender to me. I will liberate you from the effects of sins. Fear not. Tengalai say, not so. It means, even if you're capable of following other paths, even if you're capable of following other paths, try as hard as you can. It's not the capability alone that will save you. So why not lean on me rather than depend on your own strength, which is deficient as it is? The former is an attitude of self-assertion and self-perpetuation. The latter is a one of self-effacement and self-sacrifice. He says that he agrees with the Tengalai position because the term used is Sarva Dharma Pariteja, is an injunction to abandon all self-initiated attempts to achieve liberation. And actually, Ramanuja, we can go into this a little bit more. We can discuss this particular Charma Sloka or last order of Lord Krishna in more detail in another discussion. But in fact, in Sanskrit, there's two things. There's what we call vidhi and an artavad. There's a statement of fact, and then there's an injunction that you have to do this. And what he's saying is that the Tengalais are saying this is an injunction. Abandon all varieties of religion. So say, give up all self-initiated, forms of self-effort, paths of self-effort, and just surrender. And the Wadagalais are saying, after having abandoned all other means because you're frustrated because you couldn't do them, right? Right? That's what the Wadagalais are saying. They're saying that Sarva Dharma Pariteja means after you got frustrated and you couldn't do karma yoga, you couldn't do jnana yoga, you couldn't do bhakti yoga, then you can surrender. But the Tengalais are saying is, no, even if you can do them, just give it up. You know, even if you can follow the principles and do all of the little rituals and follow all the rules and chant all the mantras, and even if you can do all that stuff that's prescribed for you to do, even if you're 100% you can do it perfectly like that, give it up. Because you're not the doer anyway, and you should just surrender. Just surrender, because without surrender, it's useless anyway. With surrender, everything's perfect. Without surrender, nothing is perfect. So that's the point. Anyway, qualifications and property. Does the development of qualifications or virtues required for the other paths of jnana, karma, and bhakti yogas apply to property? The virtues or characteristics to be developed are enumerated in chapters 12 and 13. But chapter 12 is bhakti yoga. Do the qualifications or virtues required for other paths also apply to property? In other words, is there some qualification for property? And what do I say? Yeah, you know, why not? I mean, why not these different qualifications which are good for doing these other yogas? They can also be, you know, good for doing property. So they say yes. And I say no way, no. In fact, they disqualify you, right? If you think that you're qualified, that's a disqualification for property. The only qualification that is required is the feeling of complete helplessness and despair, and the realization that Jiva's natural and essential intimate relationship with Srimad Narayana, Lakshmi Tantra, chapter 1770, right? This spiritual relationship is one of dependency on the part of the Jiva and the param, well, I don't know if that's a word in English, but the supremacy on the part of Srimad Narayana, right? So it's just an acknowledgement of his supremacy. We agree with the Tengalai position. He agrees with the Tengalai position there. So yeah. So if you think that oh, I'm able to, you know, I can give so many donations and things, and karma, I work really hard and I'm going to give a lot of money to the temple, and you know, whatever it is, or to do different things, you know, or I read so many scriptures and things like that. That's really helps me with property and everything. Or, you know, I can do so many devotional acts and things like that. That's really going to help me with property. No. In fact, the opposite. If all those things do is make you have more ego that you have some qualification. It's the person who realizes that they have no qualification who has the real qualification for property. The real qualification is helplessness, is no qualification, is being a refugee. What is the qualification of a refugee? We call people bhaktas. Oh, bhakta this person, bhakta that person. Bhakta Prahlad, bhakta Dhruva. Yeah. That means he has devotion. Bhakti means devotion. To do devotional service, you have to be a devotee. You have to be devoted to God. You know, what happens if you don't have any devotion for God? Then you can't be a devotee if you don't have any devotion to God. So what do they say? Oh, fake it until you make it, right? Pretend to be a devotee. You know, pretend that you love God, and then after some time, after chant japa for 25 years, maybe you'll feel the love. You know, just practice until you become perfect, you know, like that. But the real point is, what kind of qualification does a refugee have? A prapana means a refugee, somebody who's taken refuge. He has no qualification. He has nothing. That's his qualification, that he has nothing. If you go, you know what refugee situation is like in the world, right? People go and they go to the camp, and the refugee camp, there's a guy there, and the guy says, hey, can I help you? You know, can I help you with food, with water, with shelter? You know, this is a refugee camp. We're here to help you. If you have nothing, we're here to help you. And if you walk in there and say, well, you know, I'm a millionaire, and I got a house, and I've got money, and I've got food, and I've got water. I've got everything I could need. I've got medical assistance if I want it. You know, I can pay for doctors and things like that. The man in charge of the refugee camp is going to go, next. Next, you think you can say, you've got everything. Oh, you go save yourself. Go save yourself. What are you coming to the refugee camp for? We are refugees. We have nothing. We have realized that we don't have anything. That's why we go to the refugee camp, because we need the food, the water, the medical attention, the shelter. We need all that stuff. We need everything because we have nothing. It's only the people who have nothing who have the qualification to get it. Everything. But guess what? None of us have anything. You come into this world with nothing. You leave this world with nothing. So nothing is yours. Nothing actually belongs to you. It all belongs to him. Even you belong to him. You're a slave. You belong to him. You're his property. So if you think that you have anything, even your qualifications, whatever it is, that's detrimental to property. So self-effacement and understanding that you really don't have anything. You have no recourse but to surrender. You know, we agree with the Tengalai position. Anyway, the components of property. What did I say? There are six-fold components to property, or preliminaries, right? And this comes from this sloka, which is also understood by Gaudiya Vaishnavas to talk about surrender, Sharanagati. Anukulyasya sankalpa, partikulyasya varjana, and they list these six qualities. They are a vow to live in harmony with the will of God, avoidance of unfavorable actions, so do everything favorable, reject everything unfavorable, implicit faith in the providence of God, in his mercy, right? Supplicatory attitude, right? Self-surrender, humility, and destitution, or karpanya, thinking you're completely destitute, helpless and hopeless. Okay, these are the six qualities of self-surrender. And you see they listed self-surrender as number 5 there. You can put it as number 6 in the sloka. It comes as number 6. Okay. So they say these are preliminaries. Before you do property, you have to do that. You have to feel like this, and you have to have intense faith that God will save you, and nothing else. You have to think, I will only do what the Lord wants me to do. I will not do what he doesn't want me to do. I have implicit faith that he'll save me. I have a surrendered attitude to him, and I am completely destitute, and I'm helpless and hopeless. Yeah? And you have to feel like that before you can do it. Do property. Do saranagati. And Tengalai say, no, you don't have to feel like that. Said, that is mentioned as an anga of saranagati, an anga of property, a limb of property. That's mentioned as a limb of property. It's not a prerequisite. That's not a prerequisite, because property works whether you have these prerequisites or not. Because if you say you have prerequisites, that means you have to qualify for property. And you don't have to qualify for property. It's 100% universal path for everybody. So even that person who has the house and the car and the money and the doctors and the food and the water and the medicine, even that person can become a refugee. Can become a refugee, even that person, right? He just has to realize that that's not his, that's all from God. He has to feel that, right? But he doesn't have to have all these prerequisite desires. He just has to surrender. He just has to surrender. Genuine property stands with no need of any prelude or pretext or qualification, the substantive per se, which engenders the aforementioned 6 components. They're therefore not postulates, but corollaries of property. In other words, they will grow, all those things will grow out of property. By doing property, you will want to do what God wants you to do. You will not want to do what he doesn't want you to do. You will have faith that he will save you. You will feel destitute and hopeless and helpless, and you will be fully surrendered and fully dependent on his mercy. You will feel that eventually, at some point. It'll come about by doing the property. It's not an artificial thing. You have to do that first before you do property. The mere fact that one even considers taking refuge is indicatory of the grace of God. So when you consider surrendering to God, that's surrender. That's enough. That's it. Lord Rama says, Sakrideva. Sakrid means once Eva means only. Sakrit Eva, once only. If somebody says, Tavasmi, I am yours, maybe he doesn't even mean it fully. He just considers it as a possibility. You know, the Lord takes that as an excuse and saves that person. That Vibhishana, did Vibhishana have all these qualities? Did he have all these prerequisites when he came into did Draupadi have all these prerequisites when she surrendered to God? Oh yeah, she has this, she has this, she has this. He has this, he has this, he has this. He has all these qualifications before he said, no, he just surrendered. Just a little surrender and it happens. We agree with the Tengalai position. The desire to surrender comes first, prompted by feelings of dejection and helplessness. This can be done by anyone at any time in any place without any regulation whatsoever. The Prapana then undertakes to live in harmony with the will of God and to avoid all unfavorable actions. Over time, one's faith naturally increases. Yeah. So he's saying it'll come out. It'll naturally come out. By following the process, naturally it will come out. So yeah, so it's sort of like fake it till you make it. I agree with that, somewhat. You just make some small turn towards God, some small attitude adjustment, like that. And if you just do that one time, God takes over. Even if you didn't fully mean it, he's gonna step in and take over. And he's saying, now it's up to me to do it, not you. Does property earn grace? But I say yes. In karma mimamsa, which is karma kanda in the Vedas, right? All actions are taught as having an imperceptible residual seed or apurva. So in the path of knowledge, jnana yoga, property being the seed corresponds to apurva, or the residual seed, and matures into the fruit in the form of liberation. The Prapana requests Lord's grace through the act of property, and Sriman Narayana accepts and responds to the request. Okay? The Tengalai say, regarding property as being the means of compelling grace is tantamount to bartering with God. So even the Tengalais, they don't believe that property means, look, I do property, you save me. No, it's not like that. I will surrender to you if you will liberate me. Like, on the condition that you liberate me, I'll surrender to you. You don't have a choice. You don't have a choice. You belong to him, right? Property is an act of complete and unconditional surrender and resignation, which leaves God the master of the situation. Sriman Narayana accepts the prapana of his own free will, uncompelled and unasked even. Paragata swikara. And so the seed, apurva, is none other than the grace of God. So don't think even this once only that I said, I surrender unto you, right? That is the seed which is going to turn into your property and make everything happen like that. Even that is done by God. Even that is done by him. He's the doer of that also. His causeless grace. He sees that you want to do that. He sees that you want to do that. He allows you to do that. He does that through you. Surrenders unto himself through you. So even that, we should not have the ego to think that, oh yeah, because I had pancha samskara, because I did property, because I've got this acharya that, God's going to save me, but he's not going to save you because you didn't do that. No. Okay, so he also agrees with the Tengalai position on that. Penalty for a lapsed prapana or a refugee, if he lapses, and he seems to like go against his surrender or do some strange things or whatever. We know that normally what it says in the scripture is, somebody who is incomplete, has not completed their path of karma yoga, jnana yoga, bhakti yoga. He has to take birth again, and he has to continue that path, right? So here, what do I say? If a prapana subsequent to the act of taking refuge lapses into error or sin, the atonement consists of repeating the act of property again and again, as often as one backslides. Or if one may also perform one of the several forms of atonement that are mentioned in the Dharma Shastras in order to propitiate the Lord or elicit his forgiveness. So maybe I commit some sin and maybe I think, oh, okay, there's some sacrifice or something that I can do for atonement, some prayaschitta in the Shastra, and I'll do that. Or I'll just do property again. There's something I have to do. Something I have to do if I've committed some sin or if I've done something wrong or made a lapse or an error after I've done property. I think I say, no way, not so. Property is the act of taking refuge and free and completely surrendering oneself to Sriman Narayana, and it's done once and for all, one time. This one act contains all the potential for redemption, past, present, and future sins, and therefore cannot be cancelled by a moral lapse or any subsequent acts of folly. The atonement for lapses consists of recalling to the mind the saving grace of the first efficacious act of property. So, if at all you want to think of doing some sort of prayaschitta or something like that, all you do is just think of the Lord's grace. Just think of the Lord's grace and how you turn towards him. That's all. That's all you have to do. That's it. Even that you don't have to do. This contrite repentance is enough, and the act of property remains intact and unabrogated, and no need for penances or atonement. Okay, and he agrees with the Tengalai position on that one. Varnashram Dharma, we're almost done here. We'll get it done soon. Varnashram Dharma are caste and social duties. The Wadagalai say the duties and vocations karma prescribed in the Dharma Shastras and Agamas for the 4 castes, varnas, and the 4 stages like ashramas are to be followed by the Prapana in accordance with his or her birth in order to please Sriman Narayana, and should therefore be strictly adhered to with that end in mind, pleasing the Supreme Lord. The Tengalai say it's a presumption to think that any activities of the Prapana, such as caste or social duties, actually please Narayana. Right? They may or may not. It is not for us to judge the effects on Sriman Narayana of the actions initiated by ourselves. Prescribed caste duties and dharma should be done as a way of setting an example to others who are not Prapanas, and simply as a service to God, philanthropy, the welfare of all sentient beings, Lokasangraha, should be the motivation behind our actions and not the pleasing of God, which is audacity on the part of the Prapana. The Prapana thinks that his service is going to please God. You think your little service is going to please God. That your surrender is going to please him. So it's presumptuous, okay, according to the Tengalais, like that. And he says he agrees with the Tengalai position, okay. So the real point here is that we should do things according to the Shastras because they're in the Shastras, and this is stated when we see this is the Vadagalai Sankalpa. When they say in the mantra, they say Bhagavad Prityatam, I want to please the Lord by doing this. I say, how do you know if you're pleasing the Lord? How do you know if you're pleasing the Lord by doing that? How do you know that's going to please him? What an assumption it is to think that you can do something that can please God. He is totally self-satisfied. How are you pleasing him? You think you're pleasing him? That's that's presumptuous. The Tengalais never say that in their Sankalpa. They say, Bhagavad Agyaya, Bhagavad Kainkaya Rupam. We do it because it's his order in the scriptures. And therefore we do that, the orders in the scriptures, to show example to others that to follow the scriptures. People who are not Prapanas. People who are Prapanas don't have to follow the scriptures, actually. But why do they follow the scriptures? as an example to show others how to follow, that they should follow the scriptures, because they're attached to the rules of the scriptures. And they're following the rules of the scriptures. They're following paths like Karma Yoga, Jnana Yoga, Bhakti Yoga. The Prapadas are not. And also, it's the order of God in the scriptures. So why wouldn't we follow them? Why would we go against them? Purposely, we wouldn't go against them. Why would we? So we follow the orders of God, and for his service. It's just for his service, whether he likes it or he doesn't like it, whether he's pleased by it or not pleased by it. It's his service. We're his slave. He told us to do it. We're doing it. We don't know if it's going to satisfy him or make him happy. We can't presume that our service is going to be looked upon favorably by the Lord. Maybe we screw it up. Maybe he says to do something, we do it, and we screw it up totally, and he's not happy with it. So we don't assume that he's going to be pleased. But he says, you're a slave, do this for me. So we do it for his service. Because of his service, it's his service and it's his order. Bhagavad Agyaya, Bhagavad Kainka Yurupam, or Bhagavad Kainka Yurupena. That's what we say in our Sankalpa. What the Vadalai say is Bhagavad Prityatam. We do it to please you. We think that we can please you, and therefore we are doing this to please you. We are doing it to please you. But in fact, we are not doing it. He's doing it through us, and he's doing it for his own reason. Whether it pleases him or not, he's doing it. So we don't know. We just do it because it's his order and it's his service. And whether we do it well or whether we don't do it well, badly or whatever, we have to do it. That's it. So he agrees with the Tengalai position. Concerning caste status of a Prapana, what did I say? Even after property, there are caste distinctions as per the Dharma Shastras, and that they should be retained in respect to all Prapanas. So a Prapana who is a Sudra is a Sudra. A Prapana who's a woman is a woman. A Prapana who's a sannyasi is a sannyasi. A Prapana who's a grihasta is a grihasta. Grihasta has to always pay obeisances to a sannyasi. A sannyasi can never pay obeisances to a grihasta. Even if the grihasta is the greatest Vaishnava in the world and the sannyasi is not that great or advanced, he will never pay obeisances to a grihasta. He's a sannyasi. He has to only give benedictions to the grihasta, and the grihasta has to only pay obeisances to the sannyasi. All these varna and ashrama considerations have to be followed exactly as they are, no matter what the point, right? Even if they're all prapanas. Prapanas of higher castes, and the prapanas of, okay, so a low caste prapana has to be given only verbal respect by prapanas of higher caste, and they are never actually treated like Brahmins. Sudras who become Vaishnavas are treated with greater respect than non-Vaishnav Sudras, but never on a par with Brahmin Vaishnavas. Okay, whereas the Tengalai say all distinctions of caste have to be disregarded after property. And all prapanas are given equal status and treated with a complete equality. And there's no division of caste or status amongst prapanas, and all are treated with equality. And he most strongly agrees with the Tengalai position on this one. And a Tengalai sannyasi can pay obeisances to a Tengalai grihasta. A Tengalai sannyasi can pay obeisances to a Tengalai woman. Because, why? Because we don't see them, Brahmani Gavihastini, Sunicheva Swapakicha, Pandita Samadarshnaha. See, everybody on a spiritual, completely spiritual level, they are all prapanas. They all are servants of the Lord, slaves of the Lord. They're all refugees at the feet of the Lord. So they're all equal in that way. Okay, so caste is much less caste distinctions and caste ideas amongst Tengalais and Wadagalais. Wadagalais say, okay, if the prapanas are Sudras, then they can cook. You can eat food cooked by Sudra prapanas, who are Vaishnava Sudras, but they have to be supervised by a Brahmin, a Vaishnava Brahmin. That's what Deshika says in his Rahasyatraya Saram. But in actual fact, you won't find a Wadagalai, maybe some Tengalais also, that will eat the food cooked by or prepared by a Sudra Vaishnava. But this is not what Tengalais believe. Tengalais believe It's better to be born a Sudra or a Panchama or an outcast or a woman, somebody with a low birth, than it is to be born a high caste person. Because the high caste people, right, they have all these other varnashram duties that they have to perform, whereas the low class people have none of those things to perform. They can just be prapanas. They can just be refugees, and they can more easily think of themselves as being without any qualification because they have no qualifications. And they can also take to the service of the Lord more easily because they don't have to do all the Sandhya Vandanams and all the other things that the Brahmins and all these other people have to do. They don't have the duty that they have to learn the Vedas and do all those things. They can just engage in being a prapana and worship and serve the Lord. So it's better. The Tengalaya Acharyas pray to take birth in a low caste family. Okay, anyway, so that's an obvious one. 17, concerning gradations of bliss in liberation. What did I say? There are no grades of bliss whatsoever in liberation. Everybody is the same. I say there's some variation may exist, but it's not qualitative or quantitative. The variation arises in respect to the duties assigned to various liberated jivas like or muktas. Very similar to Gaudiya Vaishnavism, except Gaudiya Vaishnavism says being a manjari is better than being a blade of grass, or something. Being in conjugal rasa is better than not being in conjugal rasa or shakti rasa or whatever. The Gaudiyas say there's a gradation. Madhvas say there's a gradation. They have a whole gradation of moksha called Taratamya, which basically says that every jiva is like a glass, and they're all different size glasses, and every glass is full, but a 1 liter glass is full of 1 liter, and a half liter glass is full at half a liter. So they say there's different differences, but the Tengalais say is no. The Wadalais say there's no differences, absolutely. The Tengalais say the difference is only in that we do a slightly different service for Lord Narayana in Sri Vaikuntha. It doesn't mean any difference in bliss. Okay, and the last thing is the nature of Kaivalya or moksha. Kaivalya moksha. Kaivalya means isolation. It's not really considered a type of moksha by Sri Vaishnavas. It's although it's in the Shastras, it's said to be a type of moksha, a type of liberation, but it's not accepted by Vaishnavas usually as the path to go to. We want moksha, but we don't want that type of moksha. We're just isolated and we can't serve the Lord. Our real moksha, our real liberation is service to the Lord in Vaikuntha. So what did I say? This state of isolated self-realization of the soul, or a state of solipsistic bliss, achieved by the yogis who follow the doctrines of Advaita and other impersonalistic schools such as Jains and Buddhists, is temporary. They say Kaivalya is temporary and can be a stage on the way to final liberation consisting of dwelling in the vision of the divine. Right? Tengalai say not so. They say it is a permanent state. The individual yogi considered it, desired it, strove for it, actualized it. It is also accepted as a form of final liberation, and there's no more rebirth for one who has attained Kaivalya Moksha, be they Jain, Buddhist, or Advaiti. That's what the Tengalai say. And he says we agree with the Tengalai position. I also agree with the Tengalai position. Kaivalya is a dead-end type of moksha, but it is moksha because the Shastras say it is moksha. It is moksha, meaning it is a final destination of bliss of the soul. It's not as great as the bliss that you get from being a servant in active service with the Supreme Person in Vaikuntha, which is the other types of liberation. But it is a permanent thing. So it is liberation. You do not come back to this material world. You cannot go forward either. You cannot attain impersonal liberation and then go further to personal liberation. It's a dead end. And that is a Tengalai position. The Wadagalai position is that it is temporary. You'll fall down, and I think Prabhupada's also talked about that too. He said that that impersonal liberation is a temporary thing, and they have to fall down, and they come back to the world and perform philanthropy and open hospitals and dig wells and things like that, and then finally they come to the personal realization like that. But the Tengalai say, no, it's a form of moksha. It's there in the Shastra. And Brahma Sutras, in the end of Brahma Sutras, says, no return, no return. You wanted that. You wanted to only be in the self and completely isolated, to experience the little type of Brahmananda or bliss of the self only, the little individual self. You can have that, and you can have that forever. But if you want that, and if you achieve that, that's forever, and you never go to experience the bliss of Kainkarya to Sriman Narayana in Vaikuntha. Okay, so that is permanent, but not. Anyway, so these are two ideas. One is it's impermanent. One is permanent. You know, I don't think it's a big. This is not a very important part of it, because no Sri Vaishnavas are looking for that anyway. There's no Sri Vaishnavas who are looking for impersonal realization. But it's just an opinion about by these two sects, whether that is permanent or temporary. That's all. Okay, some minor points of contention. One is, who gains from the act of Prapatti, the Jiva or Narayana? By doing Prapatti, who is the gainer? The Jiva gets liberation, or Narayana gets the Jiva to come to liberation. The what do I say? Attaining and being reunited with Sriman Narayana is the gain of the Jiva, of the soul. Sounds right, right? The soul is gaining moksha. So it's great. I'm surrendering. I'm doing hardly anything. I'm doing nothing back to practically. He's doing everything, and I'm getting everything. I'm getting everything. Tengalai say the Jiva is gained to Sriman Narayana because he has been reunited with his most precious possession. So even we think we're going to get moksha, and that's great. That's our greatest thing that we're going to get. No, that's not the purpose of Prapatti. The purpose of Prapatti is that he is going to possess us again. He's always possessed us, but he is going to be reunited with his most precious possession, which he feels each and every jiva is his most precious possession. So we have to see it. Even moksha is for his purpose. It's from his point of view, not ours. Definition of pervasion. Vyapti. Pervasion is a spatial relation. That's the what I say. Pervasion, thing, all pervasiveness is a spatial. Thing I say, it's not merely a spatial relationship, but it's internal and an internal and external presence of God, which is inscrutable, inconceivable to the human mind. Just like we were talking about before, we can't really understand how the jiva can be, indivisible, but somehow or other God pervades it from the inside. How can he be inside us and we're indivisible? So it's beyond our thinking to understand that. We'll understand that in moksha. But we can't understand that really now. So because the Wadagalai say it's a spatial reality, so it's not possible. There's no space inside of a thing which can be undivided. So God can't be there because there's no space for him there. But Tengalai say, no, he can be there even though there's no space for him there. And so Wadagalai say, no, he has to be beside the soul. He can't be inside it. He has to pervade from the outside only. Anyway, use of the sacred mantra, Astakshara. In the Wadagalai say the sacred Tira mantram, which comes in the Narayana Upanishad, right? Om Namo Narayana is taught to non-Brahmins and women to be recited with the Om omitted. So they have several variations of the mantra that they give people, Wadagalais. Some people they give Am, A-M, Am Namo Narayana, because they don't want to give them Om. If they give them Om Namo Narayana, then that's a Vedic chant. And the Vedas cannot be chanted. They can't be heard or can't be spoken by people who are Sudras or women. Or what to speak of Panchamas, people who are Mlechas and Yavanas, right? Lower than Sudras, Panchamas, fifth class, even though there's no real fifth class in the Dhammasutras. Manu says there's only 4 classes, there's no fifth, but people do use this word Panchama, means fifth class. Okay, so some of them, the Wadagalais, some of them say, only you can give Am Namo Narayana to the Sudras and the women. And then they say even the Mlechas, the people who are lower than the Sudras, right? Even you can't give them Am. You can only give them Namo Narayana. And even people who are lower than that, maybe you can't even give them Aya, which has got some special meaning, which we don't have time to talk about today. But you can't give them the word, the ending Aya. You can only give them Namo Narayana. So finally, somebody might be so low or so whatever that some Wadagalacharya may say, for you only, Namo Narayana. That's all. And it's all based on the body, the gender, the caste, and everything. And they completely neglect the idea that the Upanishad, the Vedas say, Om Namo Narayana iti mantro pasakaha vaikunta bhuvana lokam gamisyati. That's in the Narayana Upanishad. That person who worships, who chants, who uses the 8-syllable mantra, has to be 8 syllables. That's why some of them give Om Namo Narayana. It's still 8 syllables. The 8-syllable mantra, but it says akara, ukara, makara, iti. It has to be a, u, and om. Can't be just a and right? It says exactly what it has to be. That person goes to Vaikuntha. Never, the Shruti never says the person who chants Om Namo Narayana goes to Vaikuntha. The person who chants Namo Narayana goes to Vaikuntha. The person who chants Namo Narayana goes to Vaikuntha. Nobody says that. Of course, if we just chant Narayana, like Ajamila, we can go to Vaikuntha. But the point is that this mantra, they look at people and they say, you're not qualified for this mantra. Based on your caste, your sex, your heritage, you're not qualified for this. Like that. Tengalai say, not so. To be efficacious and remain a complete mantra, it has to be taught and recited by all as it is without any modification. What it says in the Shastra has to be taken into consideration. And the rules of Dharma Shastra, Varnashram and Varnashram and Shmitis are secondary, and those rules have to be rejected because we have to teach everybody Om Namo Narayana. And he says we strongly agree with the Tenkalai position. Fourth one is the power of celestial beings, or nityas and muktas. A nitya means he's always been in Vaikuntha. Mukta means he was here, he was a Bada Jiva, and he got liberated, and now he's in Vaikuntha. What did I say? These two categories of being have no power to create anything. Remember we were talking about how Lakshmi has the power to create universes or not? This is a Wadagalai idea that she has the power to create universes. She has the power to give liberation. Tengalai say, so Wadagalai say, they have the muktas and nityas. They say Lakshmi has the power to create universes and give liberation, but they say other people in Vaikuntha, they don't have any power at all to do that, to create anything. Tengalai say by the command of God, they can do anything. If God wants you to be able to do it, he can invest the power into you to do it. And that is called what Gaudiyas sometimes say and other people say in this world, Shakti Avesh Avatar. Avesh means invested with the power. Shakti Avesh, given the power by God, he can do anything. So Tengalai say, no, given the power by God, the muktas and nityas, they can create things, they can do things, but only given the power of God, they can do that. The location of Kaivalya, remember we were talking about Kaivalya, the dead end moksha where the Wadagalai say you have to come back, and the Tengalai say, no, it's permanent, but it's a dead end. It's only the bliss of the soul and not the bliss, the greater bliss of serving Narayana. Where is that location? Where is that? Because is that in the spiritual world? Because if it's in the spiritual world, you can't come back. But if it's in the material world, you can come back. So the Wadagalai say you can come back. So that type of moksha cannot be in the spiritual world, according to Wadagalai. So the Wadagalai say it is located in this realm, in some realm in the material universe, but we've never heard in Shastra of that realm. And they come up with some ideas like Karya Vaikuntha and Karna Vaikuntha is a real Vaikuntha, and Karya Vaikuntha is a type of Vaikuntha here, and there's a type of place where there's Kaivalya here. Somewhere hidden in this material universe, there's some place where the souls go and they're in isolation and in Kaivalya, and then they fall out of it and everything. It sounds like Shushupti. It sounds like what the souls do when the universe is sucked back into the body of Vishnu at the time of dissolution, and they sleep in Susupti, which is eternal sleep for some time. But we never heard of this. We've never heard of this in this theory in Shastra. So we don't really give that much credence. The Tengalais, however, say, as per say is per se a transcendental state, and hereby it is located in some realm in the spiritual universe. So it's not in this material universe. It's in that universe. It's in spiritual world like that. It's somewhere there that you've got these kaivalyas, people who want to be kaivalyas. They want to just enjoy themselves. And they're there eternally, and they cannot come back because the Vedanta Sutra says no return, no return. That's the last sutra in Vedanta Sutra. No return, no return. So even from kaivalya, no return, no return. The Acharya is mediator. The Wadagalais say salvation is effected through the act of surrendering to the Lord under the guidance of a qualified Acharya. The function of an Acharya is to see that all the components, all the qualifications as adhered to, and to guide the Prapana in the performance of the proper kainkaya or service. The Tengalais say the love of Acharya is paramount, and surrendering to a qualified Acharya can actually substitute for property to the Lord. If you're that hopeless and helpless that you have no idea of even the Lord, you can just surrender to the Acharya. And the example is Madhurakavi Alwar, who was only devoted to Nam Alwar, his preceptor, his Acharya. And there's also the cook of Ramanuja, who was only interested in serving Ramanuja. And Ramanuja said, oh, let's all go out into the street and let's follow the procession of Lord Ranganatha around the temple. And he said, okay, you go worship your God. I'm going to stay here and I'm going to continue to boil the milk for your service, Ramanuja, because you're my God. I don't know any other God but you, my Acharya. That's all I know. You know, I don't know if I'll get any benefit from serving Lord Ranganatha, but I know I have to continue service to you. This is called Acharya Abhimana. The wise and enlightened Acharya is especially loved by the Lord and is considered a partial manifestation of the Lord, right? We're all partial manifestations of the Lord, okay? But he's especially empowered by the Lord. Therefore, surrendering to the wise, skillful, and compassionate Acharya, Acharya Abhimana, is actually better than surrendering to the Lord himself. And Pillai Lokacharya, in his book Artha Panchikam, has listed this as a fifth way of getting to moksha. Karma Yoga, Jnana Yoga, Bhakti Yoga. These are the three that we hear about most in Bhagavad Gita. Prapatti, the secret one, without which none of the others work. Prapatti, or surrender to God, right? And finally, Acharya Abhimana, surrendered to the Guru, to a wise and compassionate Guru, like that, qualified Guru, right? Is actually can be better than surrendering to God. Now, mostly what happens is, in actual fact, people surrender to the Guru and they also surrender to God at the same time. You can surrender to two at the same time because they are one in purpose. It's not that you're surrendering to two different beings. You're surrendering to God, you're also surrendering to Lakshmi, you're also surrendering to all the Guru Parampara, right? All the Gurus, especially your own Acharya, and even not only your mantra guru or your diksha guru, but other gurus that you've got. You can surrender to all of them because they're all of one purpose. It's considered only one surrender. And that surrender can be just as effective, if not more effective, than surrendering to God himself. Normally what people do is they surrender to all. But in case you surrender only to one, it's enough. It's enough because they're all linked. They're all of one purpose. It's enough. Like that. So this Acharya Abhimana usually isn't performed as a separate path, but it's listed as a separate path by Pillai Lokacharya in Artha Panchika, just to show the greatness of that path. Just to show the greatness of that path. So love for the Acharya is paramount. Now, this brings up a point, okay? A prapana, a person who goes for I wonder, this is the last thing that I'm going to discuss. A prapana, normally you'll say, okay, you have to go to a qualified Acharya, and the Acharya has to be qualified by knowledge, jnana, and anusthana, and practice. He has to not only know what he's everything, but he has to also practice that. Jnana and anusthana are considered the two wings of the bird, without which the bird cannot fly. So that Acharya has to be totally qualified in order for you to surrender to him, in order for you to surrender to God through him, right? That's normally what we say. And when so many scriptures about this, the guru has to be so qualified, and the disciple also has to be qualified. So with the system of property, we understood the disciple doesn't have to be qualified, right? We just went through a whole discussion about how property means you don't have to have any qualifications. It's totally universal. Anybody can qualify. You could be deaf and dumb and blind, and you can still do property. It doesn't depend upon you chanting 16 rounds. It doesn't depend upon you following any rules. It doesn't even depend on sincere surrender. None of these things it depends upon. It only depends upon the Lord, because the Lord is property. The Lord is the upaya. He is the means to the end. And he does it through you. And even if you think it's for your benefit, it's not. It's for his benefit. Everything is up to him. Everything is up to him. So there's no prerequisite for it. No prerequisite for it at all. No prerequisite for it at all. So the question, the disciple doesn't need any qualifications. What about the guru? Does the guru need any qualifications? Now I'm going to give you my opinion. Guru also doesn't need any qualifications. Why does the guru need qualifications either? If it's all up to God, then even the guru doesn't need to be totally qualified. So say you have a guru, he doesn't know the whole Bhagavad Gita. He doesn't know everything. He doesn't know all the Shastras, all the Sri Vaishnava Shastras. He doesn't, maybe his practice is not the greatest as like other gurus. Maybe he doesn't get up as early in the morning as everybody else. Maybe he doesn't do all the there's one guru, he's doing all this, and the other guru is not like that. But you have faith in that guru. And that guru is a prapana also. That guru is a prapana, right? What qualification does he have to have? He was a disciple. He's a disciple of his guru in this same system. So because he's a disciple of his guru in this same system, and we say the disciples don't have to have any qualifications, so then how do the gurus have to have any qualifications? Because the gurus are nothing but the disciples from the past generation. So the guru also doesn't have to have any qualification, because the only thing that has to be qualified in property is the Lord. The Lord is qualified. He's 100% qualified. And therefore, he can save you, and he can save your guru too. So it's not dependent upon your qualifications, not dependent upon your guru's qualifications. It's not dependent upon, you doing anything, saying anything, thinking anything. It's totally, absolutely universal. All you have to do is realize it one time, and not even fully, partially realize it. Theoretically come to the realization. People say, you have to realize it, but you have to fully realize it, right? You have to fully understand it. You have to imbibe it. You have to know it from the heart. No, you just have to slightly understand the concept, and the Lord is going to take the initiative and take it as an excuse, and he's going to save you. He's going to save you and your acharya and your family and everybody. He's going to do it because you are the most precious. You're his most prized possession. He feels that you are like that. And he wants you to be reunited with him in his loving service. So he's going to do that. He doesn't need to do it. He's totally self-satisfied, but he's going to do it. And he's going to do it totally out of his causeless mercy. So you say, well, why doesn't he do it for everybody? He can do it. He can do it for everybody. He can do it for people who don't even think of him or don't even try. There may be examples where he does it for somebody who he just does it. But normally it's like the sun. The sun is there, and if we stand out in the sun, we get the health-giving rays of the sun. But if we don't go outside in the sun, if we don't open a window, if we don't, there's some little thing, if we don't give him a pretext to do it, to save us, right? Then he's going to let us drown. If we think that we can save ourselves, he's going to let us drown. So the example of the drowning man, a person who's drowning has to yell out and scream, I'm dying, I'm drowning, save me. He has to flail around. He has to do something. Otherwise, the lifeguard's just sitting there. The lifeguard is sitting on the beach and he's looking and he's seeing there's a guy out there who's swimming around. He's having a good time. Let him be. Let him be. But once he sees something wrong, I went swimming last week. I went swimming and I went out there and the lifeguard came out and he was going around to different people and he was just asking, "Are you okay?" Because he saw me. He saw me. I'm an old guy. He saw my wife. We're old guy. We're old people. We're sort of struggling to get in the water and do our thing, even though I used to be a scuba instructor or whatever. I know what I'm doing, like that. I'm confident of what I'm doing, like that. But, I look like an old guy. So he thought, okay, let me just check on these people. Let me ask them. So he came out on his board and said, "How are you okay? You guys are fine, right?" Yeah. I just told him we're fine. So he didn't save us. He didn't need to save us because we didn't make any indication that we were not fine. But he is always looking for people to save. God is looking for people to save. And if he thinks that there's just something little off with this, he's going to run out there and save you. He's going to try and save you. He's going to do it. That's his compassion. He wants to do that. He wants to have an excuse to make himself useful to save you. He wants to do that. The lifeguard wants to do that, believe me. He doesn't shy away from it. He doesn't say, "Oh, this looks like maybe that guy's having a problem. I'll just leave it and see what happens, No, he's looking. And if he sees something a little weird, he goes out there. So that's all we have to do. All we have to do is just show that we want it, in some way, and it doesn't even have to be, it can be half sincere, whatever it is. It can be with half realization. It doesn't have to be full. There has no qualification. And he is going to take the initiative. He's going to take the initiative and he's going to save us like that. In that way, people can be very happy. All these people who are purposely, they're following all rules and regulations. They're doing bhakti yoga. They're doing so many things. They're studying so many scriptures. They're preaching. They're doing so many things. They're chanting holiness. I mean, these people are they're so great. They're much greater than us prapanas, us refugees. We have nothing. We have no qualification. They're certainly going to go to be liberated. But even us, even with no qualification, we're also going to go because of his supreme mercy. Anyway, so that's just my last little bit that I wanted to say about the qualification of the disciple, the qualification of the guru in all other scriptures. And it's stated also that, I talked to my gurus and everything, and they said, previous to Ramanuja, the gurus used to really test the disciples to see if the disciple was qualified. And the disciples really used to test the gurus to see if the guru is really, really, qualified, like that. But after understanding the process of Prapatti, that all becomes pretty much moot. It's not that important anymore. I'm not saying that you shouldn't test a guru. I'm not saying that you shouldn't try to find the best guru possible. And I'm not saying that you shouldn't try to be the best disciple possible. You should. Everybody should try to do these things. But am I saying, is it a deal breaker? Is it the straw that breaks the camel's back, that this guru is like this and this guru is like that? Or this disciple is like this or this? No, it's not. Because it's all ultimately dependent upon only the Lord. He is the means and he is the goal. That is it. That's it. So if anybody has any other questions or any comments, I'd like to stop it here because we've gone really late. But I wanted to get through the whole thing in one session. And thank you for bearing with me. And it's all recorded, hopefully, so other people can see. And I hope that I haven't misrepresented anything or gone or left anything out. But this is the way that Sri Vaishnavas see things. And in fact, all Vaishnavas see surrender to the Lord pretty much like this. Maybe it's not as the concepts are not as solidified in doctrine and practice as much as a very old sampradaya like Sri Vaishnava Sampradaya is. But this is the way the Wadagalai Tengalai, and once again, whether you believe one way or the other way on some of these little details, doesn't really matter that much, like that. Whether you belong to that sampradaya, this sampradaya, or whatever sampradaya, we are all trying to do this. We're all trying to surrender to the Lord, and we do it according to our tradition and our acharyas, and that's perfect. That's perfect. We just have to have faith in that and do it.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Swamiji. It was really good.
Okay. Any comments or any further questions on that? I know I kept everybody a long time. I'm sorry for keeping you a long time. I wanted to get through all.
No, it was great. It was great. I really enjoyed. Yeah, very clear.
Thank you. Think about it. Think about it. Maybe watch it again when I put it up on YouTube. And and if there's anything that if you go through it and you find me saying something which you don't agree with, or which you have a comment on, or which you have a question about, then you can then we can talk about it again. And like I said, there's a whole book. There's a whole book on it. There's a whole book more on it. I'm not saying this is the be all and end all. You can't see it because I'm in the matrix here. But there's a book. Sri Vaishnava Theological Dispute, Manavala Mamuni and Vedanta Deshika, right? The difference between Wadagalai and Tengalai. And it gives you a lot of insight, even if you're not a Sri Vaishnava. It gives you a lot of insight into these doctrines of grace, doctrines of doctrines about Lakshmi, doctrines about practice, about faith, about works. I mean, there are literally Christian scholars who've studied these things to try to understand their point of view. You know, they have similar points of view on some of these. All religions have discussed these issues. It's just become very fine-tuned in the last so many centuries by the Wadagalais and Tengalais. Okay? And if I offended anybody from any particular branch or sect or whatever is like that, I just offer my respects. This is my understanding of these 18 points, and reading from how my friend Rama Ramanujacharya wrote them there, and having studied them and having read certain books and things like that and discussed for many years on these points. This is my understanding like that. If it's faulty, then that's my fault. And I hope that nobody takes offense at any point there.
Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
All right.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Namaskar.